What was the most cringe way that someone ever tried to ask you out? In the 7th grade, I was a very awkward child. Kind of chubby, no fashion sense, and my face generally resembled that of a gorilla. I'd already accepted the fact that boys weren't going to like me. One day I was hanging out with a guy friend, Richard. Richard was a sweet kid and pretty cute, and I'd met him through another friend. It was just Richard and me chilling in a hallway when he suddenly asked me to the school dance that was happening on a Friday. I couldn't believe it. A cute guy had just asked me to a dance? Are you sure this was real life? Say yes, you idiot. Say yes. So, of course, I did what any reasonable 13-year-old girl would do. I screamed and ran away. Richard didn't want to hang out with me again after that, and I still feel bad about it to this day. A decade later. Went to a guy's house to do a project in high school. It involved the internet, and while he sat next to me, I tried to navigate to Google. Unfortunately, the address bar auto-filled and took me to his last Google search. Page 2 of results for my name. Every link had been clicked. We both just sat in silence. I think he should have said, well, I had to make sure you weren't a murderer before letting you into my house. I mean, he would have still been creepy, but you'd be the suspected murderer. I managed a cafe that was located about an hour or something's drive from my house. There was this guy who had it really bad for me. He came in a couple of times a day and refused to be served by any of my staff. Just me. Anyway, as if that wasn't bad enough, one day during the winter it got very icy, so I decided to not drive home, but stay in a B&B instead. Safety and crap, you know? Don't ask me how, but he found out and stayed in the same B&B. I was woken up by him banging on my door. When I opened, he stands there fuming about how I don't trust him, or why else would I lock the door to my room during the night? Now, who doesn't lock the door in a B&B? Also, well, guess what? He obviously tried the door. What the frick, man? Also, by the time I made it to work the next morning, a 2-minute walk from the B&B, he had already managed to tell a good portion of the townies that he and I had spent the night together. This guy actually scared the crap out of me. I regularly passed up other people working on the same street to not have to walk to the parking lot alone. I'm not working there anymore, and since I'm living far away, I saw him driving through my town last summer once, but since he doesn't have my address and my house is kind of off the beaten track, I'm not too worried. Also, my boyfriend is living with me now, so all is well. Yes, this is indeed cringe, if it's possible for something to be gross, frightening, and still be something as trivial as cringe. What kind of sick gratification that man got after claiming you'd notched his bedpost is beyond me. Surely he just hated himself internally. During camp, I once heard mention of a girl who was into me. I wasn't that much of a fan of her, so I didn't follow it up. The day after, I came past this girl and noticed part of my name written on her hand. I asked what the deal was, she lifted her sleeve and my name was written all over her body. I was so freaked out that I didn't know how to react, I just ran away. I bump into her here and there nowadays, it's still extremely awkward. In high school, this guy who liked me used to leave love notes in my locker. They'd always had really disturbing pictures or poems in them. Not knowing that it was a friend, I used to bring them to the morning table to be like, who the frick is leaving these in my locker? I feel bad about it now, because it seems everyone knew it was him apart from me. A girl walked up to me once and said, "You're my boyfriend now. Accept it or I'm breaking up with you." I mean, she sounds hilarious, depending on the tone and the number of dangerous objects she was holding. Look at me. Look at me. I am your girlfriend now. When I was in the 4th grade, I remember having the biggest crush on a girl in my PE class. Having thought things through, I decided that I needed her to know of my undying love for her, so I wrote her a note to deliver to her in PE. So finally, when we're all sitting in our grid formation on the gym floor, I decide the time has in fact come. I get up and start walking to the fountain. She's in between, and I'd planned on just dropping her the note en route. However, in the 5 seconds between me getting up and when I'm to drop the note off, I decide that this is too easy. I've got to give her a challenge. I then proceed to the water fountain with a new plan. As soon as I get there, I plunge the note into the water, creating a wet, squishy mess that resembles a white piece of crap. My logic at this point in my life was that the wet paper would create a situation in which she'd have to spend some time decoding the note. By making the note harder to read, she'd undoubtedly be impressed. On the way back to the seat, I dropped the white-looking turd thing off with her. As you can probably guess, she didn't know what in God's name it was. She just stared at it on the gym floor for a second with her mouth open. Before she could say anything, I hightailed it back to my seat, giggling the whole way. She not once ever spoke to me again. I think it's safe to assume that she did not decode the message. In short, I once tried to tell a crush that I loved her by writing a note, soaking it in water, scrunching it up like a turd, and dropping it on the floor in front of her. I once sent a girl an email in reply to a mass email from a university course we were taking together, professing my interest in her. I clicked reply and not reply all, so I thought it was safe. I didn't know how listservs work. Yeah, I regretted that one. My work started using a program that began hiring ex-cons. One of the guys hired through this program started showing an interest in me. I wasn't attracted to him at all and made it clear to him repeatedly. Long story short, he got fired 3 months later but kept coming around the store to, quote, visit his friends. I went out to my car to read during lunch like I normally do, and there was this creepy metal and mesh flower on my windshield. I look around the parking lot to see who could have left it, and I see nobody. I threw it into a grassy area and forgot about it. I read through my lunch hour and went inside, and no sooner than I clock in, I hear a page that I have a phone call for me. It's him. All he says is, "You look so pretty when you're reading." I hung up immediately and told the manager. He kept doing more things that escalated the creepiness. I ended up getting an emergency restraining order against him when I found out he'd added me as an emergency contact with his parole officer. I didn't even know the guy. A close friend tells me she's had very strong feelings for me for the past 3 years. She tells me this a couple of days before we graduate college. I didn't feel the same way about her. According to a mutual friend, her original plan was to romantically profess her love on the day of our graduation in front of all of our family and friends. You know, I have one that makes it seem like some guys never really grow out of that awkward high school crush phase. A couple of years ago, I worked the counter at a Chinese restaurant. They were a fairly busy place right beside my house, and I'd work for a few hours almost every day after school to get them through the rush. As a result, I had a lot of regulars who I recognized, and I behaved in a very friendly, familiar way with many customers. One guy would come in around 9 p.m. once every couple of weeks and was just very quiet. I'd give him his food and he'd stammer out a thank you and make terrified, jutting all over the place eye contact during our interaction. I mean, this was no problem. He seemed like a normal middle-aged man. One night, he picked up his takeout bag and somehow managed to get his finger snagged under a staple and cut himself. He started bleeding pretty profusely, and I grabbed some napkins, trying to help him, but he kept playing it off and just booked it out there. The next day I got to work, and a bunch of my customers were telling me they heard about me on the radio. Apparently this guy was a very popular morning radio DJ, and he had been talking about a girl he gets takeouts from and is completely in love with for months. He'd mock all of his awkward interactions with me and profess his love and how beautiful he thought I was, and I guess that in telling the most recent staple story, he revealed that I worked at a Chinese takeout place, and a ton of my customers and coworkers put it together. Everyone was recounting all of these cringy, humiliating things the guy had done while picking up food from me that I'd barely noticed or remembered. It was so weird. I felt like a tabloid celebrity. He kept coming in, and I never told him that I knew he made a habit of mentioning me on the air, but I did try really hard to make sure our interactions went smoothly and to bolster his social confidence just a little bit. I really hope the rest of the locale wasn't just staring wide-eyed at the two of you for the remainder of these encounters, because that just seems awkward as all heck. It's also completely realistic that a man who was that jittery in social interactions could be smooth as all heck on the radio. I'm a very different man on the stage or on my microphone compared to regular human conversation. I actually seem like I have a personality in the former activities. Not sure if this person had a crush or was just crazy, but anyway. So I met this girl at a bar. Nice girl. Cute, blonde, typical college type. I exchanged numbers with her, thinking that we could hang out again. Fast forward to a few days later when we were just texting back and forth, setting up a date. She asked, "So how's tonight sound for you?" "Oh, I can't. I'm meeting my friend for drinks because she's leaving town." "Hey, wait, you didn't tell me you were seeing other girls? I thought we had something going on. I'm sorry, I can't do this. Please stop texting me." I just told her I'm meeting a good friend whom I've known for years and she refuses to listen. So I thought, great, dodged a real crazy bullet right there. And then she texts me saying she wants to meet again, and I said no because she was being a little crazy and making me uncomfortable. Here are some of the best creepy texts she sent me afterwards. "No, I won't stop texting you until you explain to me why you won't come out and see me." I'd already told her at this point that she was being overreactive and making me uncomfortable, and that I lost interest. "Do us a favor and stop being a butthole. Why can't you put the past behind you and give us a second chance? Forgiveness is a virtue." Then, "Just pretend that never happened and we can be happy together. I'll give you a day to get over it. We don't have to meet immediately. We can text and see how we feel. I'm in no rush." And finally, "You need to learn how Americans work. You're obviously just being rude like all other Asians." I was so glad that iOS 7 had a built-in block feature. I'm still keeping the texts in case something happens to me in the future. Freshman year of high school, this one girl had a thing for me. She'd talk to me in the halls a lot and stare. Well, one day, as I was getting picked up by my mum, she flung herself onto the hood of my car and just professed her love for me, in front of my mum. Mum hasn't let me live that one down yet. In fact, it's a topic of conversation when we have guests over. I bet it's a thing of pride for your mum, having ladies literally fling themselves around her son. You mean literally flinging themselves in front of cars? You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Oh, it is my time to shine. So I had a problem in high school, and that problem was that I would attract really creepy boys. Like ones who'd publicly declare their love for me and follow me around boys. Not good. But the one that tops the cake was this guy Tony. I'd known him for a while, but we'd never really talked until one day when he started messaging me about his problems on Facebook. I was like, this is kind of weird, but maybe he's just lonely? We become better friends, and one night we're talking and he tells me that he's really into me and he'd like to kiss me. At this point I had a boyfriend that I was crazy about, so I told him it was nice, but I had a boyfriend. Bam. 2 days later my boyfriend broke up with me. Tony calls me up to comfort me that night, being all nice and telling me how beautiful I am and how much he cares about me. The next day he walks me to and from every class, wants to hang out after school and texts me all day. Now, I'm not interested in dating him at all, and having just broken up with my boyfriend, I tell him that I appreciate everything he's done, but I'm not interested in dating him or anyone for a while. Yes, you are. You owe me. Excuse me? There is no way you would put up with all of my bullcrap if you weren't interested, and besides, I was there for you when your boyfriend broke up with you. Turns out, Tony had a history of being horrible to former girlfriends, and he was extremely manipulative. This was the beginning of threats of him not being alive anymore if I didn't date him, following me around school, and drunk texts and calls in the middle of the night. It finally ended when he told me to be his girlfriend or he'd move away and wreck his life. I told him good luck, and he did. Last I heard, he was in jail for extremely inappropriate behavior with a minor. I once wrote a love poem about the girl I liked. Apparently, the complexities of the human brain, unraveled by your long blonde mane, is not a line that attracts women. I don't know if I'm more embarrassed by the rejection or by the awful poetry. Okay, so it looks like a lot of you want to see the full poem. The first and worst of my short poetry career. This one is titled, So Love is Nothing. Love, excruciatingly painful. Why do you steal my heart? I try to ignore you, but you're always there. Gnawing away, driving my mind insane, filling my body with your delusional dreams, ignoring the obvious truth. I don't know why, it just is so. You cloud the brain with doubt. Love, lust, I do not know you. Why do you persist in this game of yours? What did I do to deserve this? Why must you be so cruel that you don't love me yourself? You took my love, but nothing in return, just the void. A black hole sucks you away from me. Fate. Why be so? The complexities of the human brain, unraveled by your long blonde mane. Oh, one kiss, one kiss, one kiss, I cry, but nothing in return. Darkness closes on this dwindling light. One day, it will shine bright. I was 10 or 11 years old and had just gotten a Game Boy and Pokemon Red for Christmas. A boy in my class noticed and was super excited. He watched me play and eventually got Pokemon Blue for himself so we could play together. We bonded a lot over Pokemon and played at every lunch break. Of course, I didn't get at the time that he had a crush on me as he was a very shy kid, and I was new to this thing of boys liking me. Eventually, we started going home to our places and playing after school. At this time, he started to warm up to me, so he decided it was a good idea to start tooting really loudly. I still remember us sitting in one sofa each in my living room and him letting them rip every other minute. He declared happily how great it was to be home from school because he could let him rip, and I just sat there wondering what the heck had just happened. In short, a kid that was crushing on me went home to my place and started a butt orchestra. I mean, Junior skipped a few stages of the relationship there. You generally don't start completely grossing out your former romantic partner until you've locked them down in place, and the legal hassle of leaving you is greater than their disgust for your bodily emissions. And even then, they can just toot right back at you, so play it smart, people. Met a girl in my chemistry class. We started talking and usually sat next to each other. One day I mentioned that I'm a little hungry and I'll probably get lunch after class. She says she's hungry too, and we decide to get lunch together. Normally, I'd be excited that a girl even talked to me, but she was way out of my league, so I didn't think she'd even have a morsel of interest in me. After lunch, we go back to our residence hall. We lived in the same building. I go to get on the elevator up to the 6th floor, and she stops me by placing a hand on my forearm and says, "Wait, I think I left my sweater in your room." And I simply look at her and say, "You've never been in my room before." After this, I facepalmed so hard and I regret it every day. Now she doesn't even look at me. In short, you've never been in my room before, and never will be. Not me, but a girl who I'll call Lexi in my class is a classic 10 out of 10 and has to deal with this stuff on a regular basis. There's another guy that goes to my school who I'll call Shiloh, who has absolutely no concept as to how social situations work and in the past has fallen in love with any girl who even talks to him. Because of the continuous stream of guys that Lexi had to deal with, she has her phone set in a way that will only receive calls from approved numbers. So Shiloh stole her phone and approved his own number. He then proceeded to ask her out and tell her that he'd enjoy rubbing his sack over her butt. Classy as F. Oh boy, Greg. Greg was this weirdo guy at my school who was 2 years ahead of me. Let me paint you a picture. Short and skinny, with a lazy eye and a huge scar on his neck from a track procedure. Super duper gothed out. This is like 2004 to 2006. Black gloves with safety pins everywhere. He sometimes wore a Phantom of the Opera mask to school. Last time I saw him on any kind of social media, he was wearing a red silk cape in the profile picture. You get it. He was in my health class. He was weird, but he seemed harmless, and my health class was full of buttheads who'd pick on the kid for no reason. And little baby freshman me thought she needed to be super nice to him just to make up for everything. I didn't think much of it, just, tried not being a butthead. Well, come springtime, I walk into the journalism lab and I sit down at my computer to find, oh, what's this? A note under my mouse. All of my friends are curiously gathered around me, and I read my name, and then, if you're reading this, it means I didn't have the stones to ask you in person, but... And thus begins the note where he asks me to prom with him. This is like maybe 10 days before prom, by the way. Apparently, he's been in love with me the whole semester and had even changed around his class schedule to not only be in another class with me, but also so he could pass by me in the hallways. I tell him, no, sorry, I'd already planned to have a sleepover at my friend's house that night. I was 14, okay? I didn't know any better. So as far as I was concerned, that solved it. I didn't hear from him much after that. The next year, no classes with him, barely any contact, until one fateful day about 10 days before prom, I'm walking out of my journalism class and boom, there he is, right in my face. Hey, do you want to go to prom with me this year? This time it's easier. No thank you, sorry. But hey, it was his senior year and he'd be graduating and I'd never have to see him again, right? Great! Oh, he's joining the army? Well, that's nice. Basic starts a month after graduation? Well, good luck, pal. And then I was free. No Greg, not even a thought of him, until my junior year. I walk into the cafeteria before school one morning and there he is, looking as gothy and weird as ever. He starts walking towards me and I make a dash to the girls' bathroom, pretending I didn't see him. My school didn't really allow visitors, so I was sure he'd be gone soon. And then that afternoon, I was sitting at lunch, eating with my little sister and a group of our friends. I'd considered eating in the bathroom Mean Girls style just in case, but no. And he walks up to me with tears in his eyes, asks to talk to me for a second. Sure. In front of everyone, he tells me he has something for me. He whips out a stack of 30-something letters he'd written me in basic training, tells me that he loves me and he's deploying to Afghanistan next week. Wants my address so he can actually send me the letters. The guy is openly weeping. I take the letters, write down my address real quick, and go spend the rest of my lunch in the bathroom as originally planned. I should not have opened those letters. Oh my god, they were graphic. They were not safe for work. They detailed what our children would look like, where we'd live, our careers, our retirement together, and they were all like that. Guess who didn't deploy to Afghanistan after all? Heck, guess who didn't even finish basic training? About a month after that incident, he messaged me on MySpace, apologizing for being a weirdo creep. I wrote back saying something like, "Don't worry about it." Then the next day, when I came home from youth group or wherever I'd been, my mum handed me the phone. "Someone named Greg has been calling for you. He's called here 25 times in the past 2 hours. You might want to call him back." So I did. I told him off, asked him not to contact me anymore. I was pretty angry. Last I heard from him was when I googled my own name and found a MySpace note he had written detailing his intense hatred for me and why I'm a stupid C-word who needs to die and how I need to die and so on. In short, sometimes there's a reason why people don't have any friends. Tried to be nice, ended up the object of a weirdo's obsession. In year 8, before the time of texting, a boy who liked me gave a girl on my bus a letter for me. It was a letter confessing his love for me, written entirely in 50-cent lyrics. The closing line being, "I love you like a fat kid love cake. You know my style, I'll say anything to make you smile." Oh god, this is making me relive all of the horrible cringe stories with people that I had crushes on. What the heck was wrong with me? I'm never going to get to sleep now.
What do you miss about being young? No daily body aches or pain. My childhood house was on a huge hill. I used to stand on the top of the hill in my snowsuit and just jump. Anything over 8 inches of snow, I would just slide all the way down. I think about this often, especially as time keeps turning. Yeah, I feel this one. I get random knee pain every so often. Not sure if it's from working out wrong or just getting older, but legit knocks me out for like 3 days or so. I look like I'm walking with an invisible cast on my whole leg. I miss my hairline. As someone who's losing their hair at 16, I envy you. Oh man, where do I start? Saturday morning cartoons, being carried to bed after falling asleep late on the couch, highly interested in astronauts, space, and dinosaurs. Every kid was. Everything seemed bigger. The small fort you built was gigantic. The skinny high school student that seemed like he was 25 years old. All teachers were old AF. The toilet in your school felt like a scary dungeon. Playing in the mud with your siblings and cousins, while your parents were screaming at your face for doing it, but you all knew you were gonna do it again. You just knew everything would be okay because your parents were always taking care of you. And if they were angry with you, you could always just go to your grandparents. And of course, falling asleep in the back seat of the van while on your way to grandma's. The sound and feel of the off-ramp would wake me up just as we were getting home. Those were the days. Having more energy and my body not aching. Dude, energy. I could just wake up and my youth propelled me right into my day. Now I'm in bed for an hour past my alarm. I need 2 cups of coffee just to get moving. My wrists hurt after decades of using my hands repetitively for work. I get hot flashes, I'm unmotivated. I do things because I have to, not because I want to. As I get older myself, I'm curious how many people feel the lack of energy are also people that aren't very active. I think we underestimate how having a healthier lifestyle can really make us feel better. I say this as someone who has recently started taking their health more seriously. And man, I do feel so much better. Living in a world where it felt like the future was going to be better instead of worse. Honestly, as a 15-year-old, I gotta say I don't really think the future is that bright. Due to things like social media, we're being overloaded with negative information like climate change, oceans being polluted, inflation, high house prices, unemployment, and a lot more. Even really young kids, around 8 or 9 years old, are brought in contact with these topics, which is concerning in my opinion. I'm in my early 60s, and in the last 25 years, the media has been bought up by 6 different entities. There's so little difference in what they're all saying, and real investigative journalism has been replaced by PR releases. I've had to go to some YouTubers and some Substack people to get any meaningful news. On the bright side, I quit yelling at my television since I quit watching anything news related. I can relate, I rarely watch big news outlets. I watch people on YouTube and streaming services to cut through all the crap for me. The complete lack of responsibility. Yeah, I missed those days where my biggest problem was having to read out loud. But you can't know what a non-problem that is in the moment. Because back then, it was a big deal. As were middle school politics, failing a test, etc. It takes perspective to understand fully, which you don't have when you're young. Like seeing a toddler cry over a dropped ice cream cone. It's literally the worst thing in their whole life. I'm middle-aged and I greatly prefer it. Personally, my give a crap meter is broken and I have tools, experience, and perspective to actually deal with things. Either way, being a person can be tough at any age. Thinking that everyone I met and talked to was my best friend. This is quickly becoming my issue. I made friends so easily in middle school. Now everyone I made friends with is leaving, or I can't find new ones to talk to. If you need help with this, I would say join online communities if you can. Play video games with people online, or just try to do something new that involves people. This is the honest truth, but some of my best friends are people that I didn't grow up with and I met online. And yes, if you're curious, I have met them in real life. Not having to work. Oh man, what I would give to have 2 months off a year again. Being able to slam half a buffalo chicken style pizza with no consequences. Half? I know, what a lightweight. I miss the optimism and promise of a brighter future. Nowadays, it's all about holding on to what I have. Brain plasticity. It was so easy to quickly learn large amounts of information in my teens and early 20s. Now I'm almost 40, my learning capacity has slowed down significantly. I'm in my 40s. One thing that I've done and I still keep on doing is studying. It's like working out. So in my younger years, I had a very broad range in IT, from storage, servers, networks, OS, etc. So I've been studying that every year, 1 to 3 subjects. This year it was firewalls, I got certified, OS also got certified, and now about to do project management. Last year was a different OS only. Year before that was storage. Anyhow, you get the idea. I got 4 kids too, so it's a hard challenge. The takeaway is to never give yourself a break. Once you get stagnant, it's hard to come back. Since you are almost in your 40s, I suggest you take something easy to start and continue. I'm also a proponent of lifelong learning. I completed a degree in programming and web development during the pandemic, and I'm also planning on going back to school within the next 3 years to start working towards a series of degrees in entomology. I just accepted a job offer from a company that is willing to train me to do software testing and technical writing. It just sucks knowing that my next venture into graduate school won't be with the brain I had during my first PhD program, or even the one I had 5 years ago. I can still synthesize information just fine, but my capacity to learn information quickly and retain it just isn't as vast as it was when I was younger. It just now takes longer and requires more repetition to learn the same amount of information. It's 4 things for me: collagen, energy, motivation, and not feeling like time is running out. To be honest, time running out is the biggest thing I think about, and this is because I constantly compare it to things I want to do. For example, if I want to write a manga and get it turned into an anime someday, I heard that it can take up to 2 to 5 years to make 1 season of an anime. So that means I should have started selling a successful manga years ago. Boredom. Before Apple put computer interfaces in our pockets, phones were mostly just phones. Boredom was common and also led to a lot of new experiences and serendipity. The lack of experiential context, aka not being jaded AF, and this innate desire to just use my body for things. I used to have an inner drive that needed to be expanded, or I felt like I was going crazy. My innate desire is now attuned to relaxation instead. Mine's simple: my parents. Oof, I relate. I miss ya, Grandpa. Getting rock throbbing, well, you know, if you're a guy. Mostly a working pancreas. I'm 30, but being skinnier and my skin. Seeing aging on my face is hard to deal with. I also miss my old melons. I feel like mentally and life-wise I'm in a much better place now than I ever was. I just miss my physical youth. Oh my god, do you feel like it hit you really quickly? I always had it in my head that aging started at maybe 40, but I feel like my looks completely changed from like 29ish onward, and I agree, it's hard to deal with. I miss my old melons too. I'd love to have my physical youth back. I guess being creative and being naturally skinny. Yeah, same. I miss my waist and my motivation to be creative all of the time. I used to write a lot, and I also loved to dance, but then puberty hit me and I gained a freaking ton of weight. And I got bullied relentlessly for it by everyone, so that sucked. However, I would say I don't really miss my childhood. I now have more freedom in decision making and I don't have to go to the loud, overstimulating family or friend meetings anymore. Wait a minute, this person said they stopped dancing and writing because puberty and gaining weight? I feel like those are 2 things that you could still do easily. But I guess maybe the bullying played a big factor in it. 20-year-old me. I work at 7 a.m., so if I stop drinking at 6 a.m., I'll be good to go. Me now. How dare you suggest starting a movie at 8 p.m.? Being ignorant to how awful and hurtful the world can be. I guess I'm lucky. I'm 36 and I don't miss a damn thing. I'm better off physically, mentally, and financially than I've ever been. Beautiful wife and family. Self-employed. Life is good. Same here. Almost 10 years older than you, and I'm better, fitter, smarter, richer, happier than I've ever been. My friendships, career, marriage, body, and wallet are all much better at this age. No, I don't look 23, but that's okay. Preferably even. I find that people who are convinced that you get fat, frumpy, lonely, isolated, and achy at age XYZ are living in ways that reinforce that mindset. Yeah, I would have to agree with that last statement. I personally know a lot of people that have the ability to better their lives, but choose not to. And they often end up grumpy. That full-fledged confidence I had in myself. I was 100% sure that I knew absolutely everything and acted accordingly. Yes, it was absolutely obnoxious for those around me, but the confidence of 18-year-old me was unmatched. Now, I find this one funny because I was 100% this way. I thought I was going to win an Oscar and be making blockbuster films by the age of 25. Oh, how full of myself I was. I still want to do those things, but I'm a bit more realistic on how hard it is to get to that point. Also, being a content creator, I have some younger viewers that think like this now, and it's funny to see that confidence, or better, ignorance, knowing that I was once the same way. My metabolism. Just so you know, if you drag yourself to the gym a few days a week and put on some muscle, you'll raise your metabolism. Not just from the exercise itself. Once you build some muscle, you burn more calories at rest too. There are a lot of 50-year-olds at the gym who look and feel great. It just doesn't come free anymore. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if any of that's true, but I can say working out does make you feel better. When you're in school and it sucks, you can think to yourself that it's just a temporary ordeal on a way to something better. And there's a sort of general idea of the path you're on. When you're in a crappy job, you can quit and look for another crappy job, but there's nothing other than jobs that you're heading towards for the next half century or so. Even if you're in a good job, sooner or later, you just get more stuff piled on you until it becomes a bad job, at least in my experience. I agree and disagree with this. I did have a super chill job before becoming a content creator, but over time it beat me down and it made me question what I was doing with my life. Nothing is more motivating, in my opinion at least, than seeing the years fly by and seeing that you aren't any closer to your goals. It'll make you reevaluate your life and desires. As for the getting a good job or sooner or later it'll become a bad job, I don't think I agree with that. I really enjoy my current job over any other job that I've had. And if there's things I don't like about it, I try to find ways to improve it. I don't know, if I'm still doing this in a few years, maybe I'll think differently, but right now, I think it's pretty awesome. Waking up and knowing that I could realistically end up doing something completely unexpected that night. I could end up at a concert, some crazy road trip, a festival we just discovered, etc. That and the music. Life is so boring now. I technically still do all the fun stuff I used to, but after 2020, I'm just super anxious about everything. The simplicity of life. When I was a kid, a perfect day kind of looked like this. Wake up when I want, spend the morning at either the library or the comic store, go home for lunch, head out with some buddies to get up to no good for a few hours, head home for dinner, read some books/comics I picked up earlier that day, then finish the day with a gaming session on the console. I didn't know any better. That was just life. Now, if I have a day like that, I need to plan ahead like 2 weeks in advance. Clear my entire schedule, turn off my phone for the day, make sure all the meals are prepped ahead of time, or go out to a fast food joint, and then I can have a day that kind of resembles that. I need to put in the mental energy and planning just to have a real day off. And I don't have kids, so I get to do that every once in a while. If I did have kids, I would never have a day off. That's a 24/7 job. I can't even imagine it. The idea of stressing out and planning my whole day off is counterintuitive to the concept of it. But if I don't do it that way, it's not gonna happen. You know, I can totally relate to this. I am a workaholic, it feels like, and if I do have a day off where I'm not working the job that actually pays me money, I'm still doing something along the lines of like writing for a comic book or trying to write a short film or just streaming. I can't really remember the last day I just had a day off to do nothing. It definitely needs to be planned. The ability to enjoy things without thinking about the inner workings of things. Nowadays, it's hard to really enjoy anything without thinking about the people behind it, the corners they cut, the agenda they're trying to push, etc. It's really hard to innocently enjoy anything anymore the older I get because the mythicism of everything kind of fades away, in the understanding that someone is behind this, and it sucks. Knees. Honestly though, I'm 33 and I'm now in the washed up athlete bucket. I miss the days where I could go ham and wake up the next day feel like nothing happened. Sleeping. Years of shift work and being emergency response for stuff has left me with the inability to sleep properly. My woman says the butterfly in my spirit animal has given up because of how lightly I sleep and how instantly I'm ready for action if disturbed. It's a real bastard. Not much, truthfully. I'm a better person now overall, in better shape, figured out school, and I'm married with 2 wonderful kids. My hobbies are still there, but now I get to share them. Okay, maybe I miss my old Saturday morning cartoons. Looking at you, Reboot and Beast Wars. Dude, I tried watching Beast Wars as an adult, and I couldn't get past the cringe dialogue in the first few episodes. I remember loving that show as a kid, but it's so dated now and I don't want to try watching it again and ruin any of the nostalgia I have left. Saturday morning cartoons were dope though, definitely programmed us to look forward to the weekends. I am so glad that somebody mentioned the show Reboot, because for anybody that doesn't know, basically it was like a 3D cartoon. But the craziest thing about Reboot was the ending was in the name of the show. Spoiler alert for a show that's over 20 years old, but the finale of the show has all the characters die because the computer they're in gets rebooted. Thinking about that as I got older, I was just like, dude, that was pretty morbid for a kid's show. Wild stuff. Perfect eyesight. As someone who got glasses during the pandemic, because I thought it was a product of panic attacks, I will say the clarity that I have with them on is insane. Really made me feel my age for that moment. Absolutely not giving a flying crap about playing video games all day, every day for weeks. And with the boys. Nowadays, me and the boys are busy with work, and when it's not work, it's our romantic partners. Haven't gamed with the boys for more than an afternoon in years. Being able to make friends because, hey, we're similar ages. Even in my 20s, I would go out into a different city and just blend in and party with a gang of similar age strangers. No problem. The joy of Pokemon. I mean, now at 29, I still play Pokemon, but I have vivid and joyful memories of playing Pokemon Yellow in the car coming home from my grandparents on my Game Boy. The streetlights kept me being able to play the game. The feeling of pure happiness when I got myself, by myself, through the forest on my way to challenge Brock. Dude, same. I feel this completely as I am a similar age to you. Pokemon Go was also so good a few years back. Lack of worries. I missed the days when my worry was if my crush was going to notice me that day. Now I worry about having enough money to one day buy a house and support future kids. Having time to clean my house, eating healthy to avoid health issues, doing well in my career, while maintaining friendships. It's not necessarily what I miss about being young, but as a kid, I always wished that I was 16, 18, 21, pivotal ages in a person's life. But now that I've been all of those ages, I'd give up so much to go back 10 years where life was just innocent. 2 big reasons or timelines. Being under 13. I really miss how simple life was. Nothing but playing video games, hanging out with friends, going fishing, and playing in the woods. Just good old-fashioned kid stuff. Every day was a little adventure. After 13 and on through college, life definitely wasn't as simple, but you still have your whole life ahead of you to look forward to. The possibilities for future are limitless. Now at 37, I look at life as being middle-aged. I live a great life, but I definitely long for my youth. Our parents are facing their morality, and I look at life as being closer to the end than the beginning now. It sounds morbid, but it's the reality of things. My friends are fat, bald, or both. People have been married and divorced, including myself. People have died, pets have died, and we move on. Life just doesn't have the magic it did when we were young, and there isn't a nostalgia rabbit hole satisfying enough to truly take me back. Well, damn. Now I'm depressed. Why not end the video talking about what I miss about being young? I heard a lot of people talking about their looks and how they feel physically. I have to say, I don't mind the way I look right now. My mustache actually looks pretty great compared to when I was younger, and my hairstyle has definitely improved. If I eat healthy and work out regularly, I feel pretty great. But I think the one thing I really miss about being young was the simplicity of everything. You never had to defend why you liked something or why you thought something was the best thing ever. You didn't have a million questions on why your crush didn't like you. It was because she didn't like you or think you were cute enough. Simple as that. Whereas today, you end up asking yourself, did they not find me attractive? Was it because they didn't like my job or where I live? Was it my laugh? Maybe she didn't like the way I dressed. Maybe it was because I said something that she didn't agree with. And so on and so on. But one thing that I didn't see on this list today was the lack of choices. I miss when I only had one video game to play because I became the greatest player at that game. I was doing speed runs of games before I even knew what speed runs were. I came from a family that couldn't buy new video games all the time, so I got one and I played it until you couldn't play the game anymore. Nowadays, great games are being released for free in hopes that you make in-app purchases. So many amazing games come out now that I beat them once and I move on to the next because I don't have time to collect every trophy in the games anymore. Oh, there is 10 different alternate endings to this game? I guess I'll watch the other 9 on YouTube. There used to be this thrill that came with playing the same game over and over again. Now that is definitely something that I wish I could experience again. What words or phrases do you hear someone say and immediately know you're probably not gonna like that person? Tough love often seems to be used as an excuse to be a jerk. I get it when it's like an intervention, but most times I've personally heard this is just for when people want to start crap. So I personally don't use the term tough love, but I am the doesn't sugarcoat things friend. Granted, I know how to read a room and I'm not heartless, but there are a bunch of people in this world that need a little push or to be told that they are acting a certain way that might not be for the best. I feel like tough love is probably the best phrase, but I don't know another phrase that doesn't seem negative. You're so quiet. No, I'm not quiet or shy, I just don't want to speak to you. We're all family here. In a work setting, mother freaker, you just laid off cousin Bill last week. Yeah, as soon as you start talking to your coworkers like you talk to your brother, you get written up. Can you go get the cart from the back in building C? Get crapped on, poophead. You've got legs. Instant write-up. So much for family. No offense, but just before saying the most offensive thing you've heard in your life. See, also, don't take this the wrong way, with a disaster statement to follow. That's the cousin of, I'm not racist, but proceeds to say the most racist thing you've ever heard. Can't forget stepsister of, not to be political, but you can't retort it because they made it clear that their political rant wasn't political. This family usually calls Twitter home. People don't like me because I tell it like it is. And naturally, they hate when anyone else dares to tell them how it is in kind. Very thin-skinned these blunt folks are. My ex. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Also my ex would quietly simmer about things he secretly had an issue with for months, make snarky remarks out of nowhere, and then it would be like pulling teeth to get him to have a solid conversation about what the freak was even up with him. Turned out to be a shady mofo who would rather burn everything to the ground and start over with a whole new friend group than actually admitting to someone that he was in the wrong. I'm so bipolar. To explain why they are indecisive, or to play off poor life choices, or just to say it to sound quirky. I really hate that because I'm bipolar and I rarely tell anyone. I hate this for, I'm so OCD, too. Yeah, definitely. My colleagues say this all the time and it's really annoying. I actually have OCD and it's a horrible condition that limits your life so much and it gives you so much stress and anxiety. Another one that makes me roll my eyes is, I'm so weird. People seem to like to use those kinds of words to make them seem special or cool. Whatever. I'd like to add in here the phrase, I'm dyslexic. For people that do something by mistake or switch something around that they didn't mean to, that's not dyslexia. You just messed up. Call me when you have to proofread a tweet or text message a million times and the moment you hit send, you notice mistakes. I'm bipolar and I hate it when people use it as a badge of quirkiness. Nobody brags about climbing the walls at 3 a.m. Nobody should aspire to burning their life down. Nobody can throw away every relationship, career, education, and think it's something to be proud of. Because of these people, my own tendencies get blown off and not taken seriously. I'm so glad I found medication that works. I hate the way I used to be. Absolutely hate it. One of my best friends is bipolar. I was roommates with the guy for 3 years. Regular people simply don't know crap about how significant the ups and downs are. And they usually aren't mentally prepared when I start giving examples of the crazy crap I put up with. Some of them immediately question how I put up with him or why I didn't bail. He and I are still besties, and I love telling all those idiot normies that they simply aren't as strong for their friends as they think they are. I'm super happy that you've got a decent medication plan. My friend finally found something that works this past year, and instead of waking up thinking, I want to die, or messaging all of his Discord friends at 5 a.m. to see if anybody is still awake. He just goes to work feeling like a human, and he goes to bed early just because he wants to. But seriously, congrats on finding something that works. I've seen how it changes somebody, so I'll cheer you on too. I do want to say I take a little issue with the comment that said people are idiot normies because they wouldn't stick around for their bipolar friends. I do think people should be commended for supporting their friends in positive ways. That's always great. But I dated a girl that was bipolar and it was ruining my life. And I stuck around for 5 years. In my case, they tried medication, but they didn't like how they felt on it and went back to life without it. So I have to say there is a limit to how much people should have to quote unquote support their friends. It shouldn't come at the cost of your own happiness. I hate drama. I have never heard someone say this unsolicited and not been exhausted with their shenanigans within a day. Those of us who really hate drama feel no need to announce it. We just quietly try to bail out of situations without getting noticed and drug back into it against our will. Someone who describes themselves as an alpha male tells impulsive stories about how tough he is and how many women he's banged. Yeah, me and you are gonna fall out real soon, buddy. And I'm not just saying this because he's an ex, loser ex-BF said this all the time. Then later, when I broke it off and ignored him, his messages were things along the lines of, "You think you're an alpha female? But you're not even close. You can't compete with me and what I bring." Ugh, I hated that guy so much. I didn't believe it until I had a roommate call himself one. And he was serious about it. Considered himself a global nomad, does nothing but look at stocks and crypto every day, only wore tank tops, had a man bun, believed himself to be a natural leader and kept trying to force himself as the leader of the house. Eventually he got into a fight with my roommate because the alpha kept insulting his parents. When I told them to fight, my roommate pushed him. The alpha called the cops because he touched me first. The cops laughed in his face. But it wasn't fun being questioned by the cops at 10 p.m. Dude, can I just say that if a guy constantly talks about how much he hooked up with chicks, they more than likely are not doing that. I used to work with some dudes that were like this, and all of these stories happened when there were no witnesses, and if they ever went out with coworkers, they were often quiet and kept to themselves. Also, the hookup situations always seem like something you could find on Orange and Black YouTube. Where's my hug? Immediately, no. As an empath, that or I'm an old soul. I like people who are spiritual, but these particular people seem to be less spiritual and more full of themselves most of the time. Good vibes only. And I'm such an empath. Okay, I've totally met people that say I'm an old soul or that they like good vibes only. I have never in my life met somebody that has considered themselves an empath. Is that really a thing? Why didn't they just take eagles to Mordor? I feel like this one doesn't get used much outside of nerd circles. Oh, I'm totally compelled to do this totally normal activity because my OCD, ADHD, bipolar is kicking in. This is absolutely not how ADHD works. Everyone seems to have it. It's annoying. I hate that I found out that I have ADHD in a time where everyone thinks that they have ADHD. It is a huge light bulb moment for me. Like, oh crap, this is why my life has always been so hard for me. And I felt like such an outsider/weirdo. But now it's trendy to say that you have ADHD, even though when you really have it, it just sucks. I do find it funny when people think that they have ADHD and they use it as an excuse. When I hear somebody say that, I usually ask, were you diagnosed? And if they say no, I just tell them, you're probably just bad with time management. You'd be surprised how much people could get done if they actually scheduled things out. Those type of people that say, I got this shirt for X amount and these shoes for Y amount. You pay way more than normal people for stuff. That's not something to brag about. Also, do you really have no innate worth that you have to toss around price tags to attract people? To be honest, I throw around amounts sometimes, but in the opposite. Usually to boast about how cheap something was. When someone compliments my jacket, oh my god, it was on clearance for 20 bucks, thanks. Both sides of this coin can be really annoying, but it's harmless if you just do it from time to time. Women who say, I only have guy friends, which is usually followed by something like, women always bring drama, women are usually jerks, women can't handle how real I am, women are always jealous of me. Yeah, it's great to have guy friends, but the problem is when women who view other women as the enemy. Oh my god, I hate this one too. Girl, when you're having problems with all the other women, you're the problem. I have to say 100% yes to this. We've done a red flag video here on the Genius channel before, and I don't think this was brought up, but when women don't have female friends and say the reasoning are some of the above, it's definitely a sign of trouble from my experience. But to be fair, there were a few comments that countered against this idea, and they went like this. I feel like where I was raised in the 80s and 90s, it was common practice to pit girls against girls. I grew up with one other girl as a friend, and she was a huge tomboy like myself. All my other friends were dudes. Okay, fine. They were good people, but as an almost 40-year-old woman, I love and cherish my women friends, and have almost no close male friends anymore. I feel like I was robbed of female friendship as a child due to my parents, and other adults making me think I hated other girls from the get-go. I just want to add, everyone who says that dudes don't like drama are full of crap. Men love drama. If they say most or all of their friends are guys because they grew up with brothers and are more comfortable around guys, or that they can't find any girlfriends that want to do the same activities as them, it's totally understandable. But to say women are too much drama or jealous or can't handle them is just annoying. Sincerely, I'm a girl that has a bunch of guy friends, which is fine, but I like to do typical male activities. But I also wish I had more women friends because sometimes guys just don't get it. And sometimes I just want a girls' night. Just to back up the comment of men liking drama, it's 100% true. I used to work at an old auto factory, and gossip spread faster than COVID in that place. The factory was like 80% dudes. My truth. As the way my philosophy professor put it when a girl asked, "I'm just speaking my truth." I could believe the moon is made of blue cheese and say that's my truth, but that doesn't make it true. Get over yourself. I think I would have loved this professor. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that I believe comes from Ricky Gervais, and it said something along the lines of, "Just because you're offended doesn't make you right." And I feel like that statement is becoming truer and truer by the day. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Yeah, this is basically code for saying you're a horrible person. When they start bragging about themselves when you first meet them. You know what your problem is, don't you? Oh, that's such typical star sign behavior. Every horoscope is a Rorschach test. People will see whatever they want to see. I can read every horoscope and find something that applies to me all the time. Horoscopes are stupid. That's such an Aries thing to say. Engagement, initiative, any kind of group speak that sounds like the corporate marketing manager plagiarized. I can't comment on corporate speak, but people that use big words just to sound more intelligent, we get it, Brad, you can read a dictionary. I'm an influencer and I have X amount of followers. I will say this statement is worse when they're just starting out. Yeah, I just started, but I know what it takes to become famous, so in a few months, these numbers are gonna be insane. Just watch. My ex was a narcissist. I didn't hear this nearly as often until the last year or so. Now suddenly everyone has an ex that's a narcissist. I work in the behavioral health field, and this one drives me crazy. No, just because you both wanted different things in life doesn't make him selfish enough to be labeled with an actual personality disorder. Oh my god. Just say you weren't compatible and move on with your life. No offense to those who actually genuinely dated a narcissist. People can just be genuinely sucky, awful, self-absorbed, and even abusive, but still not be a narcissist. People don't have to have a personality disorder to suck. That last sentence is vastly underrated. Anyone older who says, "Back in my day, you young people don't know what hard work is." Anything like that, as if they couldn't buy a house on minimum wage and go to college without crippling debt. I personally graduated debt-free thanks to scholarships, but the older generation seems to not understand the wage/cost disparity between their generation and the younger generations. As I'm older now, I understand that everyone will end up saying, "Back in my day," or "the younger generation," because it's the best way to describe something in comparison. It isn't always negative, and a lot of statements are truthful, such as, "Back in my day, people didn't come out as gay in high school because they feared what people might think or say." Or, "The younger generation will never understand the amount of effort that went into a research paper before the internet." Yes, but you know others have it worse. Every time you have an issue, denying the pain of someone isn't helping them at all. Yes, others have it worse. But at day D, hour H, I want to talk about my feelings and feel heard and seen. I want solutions, or I want help, or I want someone to complain about said subject or sensitive topic for me. It's not being selfish, it's just de-stressing. And if you can't find a solution, at least keep the bad vibes away. I had this new coworker who I didn't have to work with, but could have made both of our jobs easier. He didn't even need to say anything. At the first morning meeting, he had a Daily Wire coffee mug that said, "This cup is filled with liberal tears." Yeah, no thanks, dude. I don't need your help with anything. Anything involving crystal healing, essential oils doing more than just smelling nice, or projecting one's dreams into reality. I forget the exact term for the third thing at this moment. If any one of these things comes up in conversation and you're being serious about it, I automatically don't trust you completely. If multiple are a part of your personality, I don't trust you at all. Is the third thing speaking stuff into existence? Is that what they meant? Anyone that badmouths others. My initial thought immediately jumps to, what are you gonna say about me when I'm not around? Everything happens for a reason. Nah, that's some bullcrap platitude that you tell yourself because thinking the world operates on logic and reason is a coping mechanism for avoiding the reality that the world is unfair, unpredictable, and bad things happen to good people all the time. People who will insert, well, if Trump was still in office, in every single conversation despite having nothing to do with politics. Oh, I just thought of another one. People who say, well, just wait until some blue-haired person comes by and complains about what we're doing, when they are trying to defend something that they do or are into. Most of the time, it's projection and it doesn't even make sense with the particular subject matter. Men are logical and analytical, and women are emotional. That's one of the most inaccurate statements I keep hearing every time I listen to a certain type of people on certain videos or podcasts. Anyone using words like literally, toxic, or problematic in every other sentence, it's like these words have lost all meaning. Regardless, or it is what it is. Guilty of it is what it is. I'm not saying I don't care. To be fair, sometimes I don't care. But more that you need to keep perspective in what you have control over in your life and what you don't. I have a few coworkers that are habitual complainers, to the point that I believe it may just be their natural state. Why the freak are you complaining to me because Taco Bell was out of Baja Blast 8 hours ago, before you came to work and now your day's ruined? They didn't have it. Get something else. It is what it is. It boggles my mind people can function in their day-to-day life by personalizing every externality and bringing themselves to near cathartic rage about them. Any talk of Biden crime family, Hunter laptop, CRT, they put litter boxes in schools for kids that identify as cats, them teachers are indoctrinating kids, mentions of Newsmax, OAN, or Tucker freaking Carlson, or blaming Democrats for every poor choice they made in life. I'm not racist, but went on a date with a random woman from Bumble, and no more than 5 minutes into the convo, she started a sentence with this, then spewed something incredibly racist. There is no way to end that sentence and not have it be awful. Paid the bills for the drinks and apps that hadn't even arrived yet and made a beeline to the door to nope my way out of there. If she bleeds, she breeds. Don't forget, oh look, now you're breedable too. Well, the Bible says, followed by some incredibly arrogant thoughts. Anyone who says, I have haters, or any variant of that. Anything derogatory regarding or referencing a group you're not a part of tells me all I need to know about what you think of yourself and others. Work hard, play hard. As a straight, white, cisgender person, ma'am, this is a Wendy's? Thoughts and prayers. Tells me they put on an empathic face while doing absolutely nothing to help, regardless of their ability to do so. Virtue signaling at its finest. Anything MAGA, using the term woke to describe people they don't like, and preaching/missioning about any religion, and I'm out. I'm sure you're a fine person, but I only have 20 to 30 years of my life. I don't want to spend it conversing with idiots and self-righteous voices that believe in that. I'm not sure what happened here, but there was a huge pocket of things that were intertwinable and relatable all in that little section. The one thing I will say though is if woke is part of your everyday vocabulary, yeah, my brain is probably gonna turn off when talking to you. You'd be prettier if you just smiled. Relax, bro, it's just a joke. after saying something incredibly inappropriate or offensive. Specifically, anyone who refers to COVID as the Rona. I hate you. I'm a real patriot. Most people who use this phrase never served their country in any capacity to make it better. That means not necessarily military, but other jobs that help the country as well. And they think for some reason, because they are extremely right-leaning, probably love the orange one, and have lots of guns, it makes them a patriot. I served in the military, then when I got out, I tried to keep jobs that help my community/country in some way. And I feel like a true patriot is not a person looking for violence or to hate others, but a person who wants us to all succeed, even people who are immigrants that may not be an official citizen yet. And for us all to work together as a country to improve the lives of everyone that lives here. To me, that's a true patriot. I got one that I didn't see on the list. When gamers say, people nowadays would never survive in the old Call of Duty lobbies. People that say this are usually some of the softest people in the world. Just look at any big YouTuber or Twitch streamer that plays COD religiously. What do you miss that disappeared during the pandemic? Being able to afford things. Same salary and crazy inflation. What a great combo. I feel this, but I'm also jealous. I went from working minimum wage during college to making really good money, but having to move to an area with astronomical prices of living, plus inflation, so I still can't afford anything. When do I get to the part where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck? I thought at this level of income it meant that I would be rich. I miss when I enjoyed my job. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but COVID really changed the way my hospital runs, and not for the better. All the good staff that could jump ship did jump, and if they replaced them at all, it was with travelers or warm bodies, and our quality of care has certainly suffered. Not to mention the organization I work for is buying up all sorts of crap, but when we need vital equipment, we are told that there is no money for it. Even more insulting is this stupid freaking robot they bought that's sole purpose is to deliver things between departments. I'm pretty close to quitting healthcare forever at this point. Normally I don't entertain when people crap on America, but for real, as someone on the inside, our healthcare system is freaking appalling. Respirator therapist here. Pre-pandemic, I was super bubbly and chipper. It was easy for me to relate to patients and families. I used to wear bows in my hair. Patients loved it and said it brightened up their day. A year into COVID and the bows stopped. I stopped being able to connect with people because everyone was dying. I became closer to my coworkers, but basically was a robot to patient care. I still do all the things that were required of me and try to do extra when I can, but my heart, or what used to be my heart, isn't in it right now. I smile and say all the right things, but I don't feel like I used to. I'm trying to get back to my chipper, bubbly, unjaded self, but I worry that that part of me died with the hundreds of patients during the pandemic. I miss feeling like I was making a difference. A slight more reasonable cost of living. Everything has gotten so expensive across the board. And every industry is posting record profits. Even the egg shortage led to the highest quality profits in the industry that had ever been seen in America. Capitalism gonna capitalism. Restaurants having late hours and, more importantly, correctly posted hours of operation. I swear it's been like a crapshoot knowing when even large franchises will close, when their actual hours don't match Google, Apple Maps, or their own damn website half the time. Picking up lunch on the way to my overnight shift has become such a gamble. Like, is that place gonna be open or will the other place be open? I'll admit, I save some money by packing a lunch, but I miss picking up food twice a week on my way to work. 24-hour Walmarts and all-day breakfast at McDonald's. Stuff being open after 9. Working second shift got harder when everything closed after. Right? Sucks when your break is at 8 p.m., so when you get hungry, oop, everything's closed. Need to go grocery shopping after work? Nope. Stuff is closing before the sun even goes down, and it's killing me at my core. Went to Starbucks last night, Saturday, by second shift count, and they must have been closed at 8. Rushed to get something for dinner, place closed at 10 p.m., and I got there at 9:30. Pretty sure their sanitation standards dropped by 7 or 8, because there was a freaking piece of wood in my steak and cheese. Not to mention the crap explosion I suffered soon after. So it's not even that everything's closed early, the standards have absolutely dropped as well. Not sure if this person lives in a town or a city, but I don't think before or after the pandemic had places closing that early. Starbucks has always closed at 10 p.m. where I live, except maybe on Sundays. Also, our major grocery stores don't close till 1 a.m. My social skills. Seriously, I found myself extremely awkward as things started opening up. Oh, and social stamina. Went to a baby shower for about 2.5 hours and to the department store for like an hour yesterday. Came home so exhausted, and I took a nap for an hour. Then a few hours later, I went to bed and slept for 13 hours straight. Like, what the freak? My job. Company went under. It was a love-hate relationship, but I suffered for it. Civility. I mean, it wasn't great to begin with, but post-pandemic, no one seems to know how to act in public anymore. I remember a viral video from the start of the lockdowns of a dad with a British accent telling a bedtime story to his kids about how the world was going to pull together and be even better after the pandemic was over. Narrator here, we didn't, and it isn't. No traffic, and no one. Everything wasn't crowded, and it didn't make me hate how people are literally everywhere. Dude, I relate. I remember driving on the highways and driving downtown at night, and there was absolutely not a soul in sight. It was pretty amazing and a little frightening. Closest thing to a post-apocalyptic world we might ever experience. My belief that most people are reasonable and compassionate. Me too. I used to be so optimistic and believed the good in people. I have completely lost all hope, and I just don't care about people anymore. Maybe I'm part of the problem, but damn it, I've lost any and all patience with anyone. 24-hour stores and food that had better quality. It seems like all food went downhill in quality. Fast food, sit-down restaurants, takeout, and grocery stores. Honestly, I've noticed that all the layoffs during COVID cut the hours and the business quality. Corporations don't want to return to normal. They make enough money now and pay less people to do the same job. General friendliness. People care less about each other than they used to. I'm a firm believer that people never cared about each other. They were just too scared of the social consequences of showing it, so everyone just got good at pretending. Driving skills. People have been driving like freaking idiots. The average normal driver, everyone on the road seems to be too aggressive and entitled, all while using their phone. My grandpa. I'm sorry for your loss. For everyone's loss. Father-in-law for us. Friends. So no one told you that life was gonna be this way? Clap, 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 clap. Paper menus. I'm tired of scanning QR codes and dealing with terrible interfaces and slow Wi-Fi just to order a meal. So true. A lot of restaurants I go to are in this weird internet dead zone, so loading a menu up on my phone is always such a massive pain. Honestly, I can't say I've ever had to do this. Is this like an LA, New York, or Chicago type thing? Empty areas. I very much dislike crowds, traffic, and lines. I remember my first proper drive during the strictest lockdown here. It was glorious. People. We were deemed essential services and were forced to work. We didn't want to be called heroes. The people did that to make themselves feel better. Now that COVID is over, the people are back to treating us like pure garbage again. Screw people. I quit my grocery job 2 years into the pandemic after being there since 2017. I would have people pass me and be like, "Thank you for your service." And then by halfway through the first year of it, I had people treating me like crap again. The level of stress and anxiety we endure was astronomical compared to years past. I drank the Kool-Aid and really believed that we were making a difference. But sadly, most could care less as long as they got what they wanted. As a team, we really had to lean on each other to get through it. And you really find out about one's character. I remember the great toilet paper pandemic. You'd wheel out a cage and it was picked clean before you even got to the TP aisle. You could take out a pallet of TP, unwrap it, and just stand at the end of the aisle with your manager just watching the absolute lunatics. We kept a stash of TP out in the back. If we saw a distressed looking old person / working person, we'd go up to them and be like, "Psst," and tell them to meet us by the staff door and we'd bring them TP. It was like being a substance dealer. Good fun. I started at a grocery store a little more than a month before the pandemic lockdown started. I never thought much of the pandemic, but early on there would be people coming in and thanking us for working, for being open, treating us like first responders combating the pandemic on the front lines. It's not that that's gone now, it didn't even last the pandemic. Lockdowns kept getting pushed further and further until it became the new normal. People became more and more frustrated and anxious in their daily lives. Holding up till mid-March, when it still felt like winter hadn't quite ended yet and it was going to be another 2 weeks. Only go out for essential reasons, people could do that. But then it stretched. The weather got nicer and people got cabin fever. People gradually learned and were told outright that your summer was going to be gone. Any plans you made? Gone. The world is different and scary. Every day, fear for your lives. Soon, us heroes on the front lines were now the only people that were allowed to interact with and vent with those frustrations. People just wanted somebody to yell at, and we were the only ones available. Man, I worked retail for 5 years during the height of Black Friday when people were being killed for items, but after hearing so many pandemic stories, I can say that it probably wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I'll never go back to retail because people are the worst. My control over my phone and social media, it got so much worse. My confidence. After years and years of working on it, I'm back to square one and older. Keep working on it. I never thought in a million years that I would be as outgoing as I am now. Still not as much as other people, but a huge jump from where I was. Getting yourself out there and putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations, little by little of course, makes a huge difference. It eventually just becomes normal. And fake it. I always fake being calm and confident, and slowly it started to become a reality. Communication, especially in business. It seems like people never want to get back to you. There was this all-you-could-eat place. You could sit there at the table and order off the menu. Everything was made fresh and brought to your table. They closed during the pandemic. I relate to this one in 2 different cities actually. In San Diego, there was this pizza place that was a few blocks from the convention center that I always ate at every single day of the convention. Doesn't look like they made it out of the pandemic. And in Austin, Texas, there was this burger joint that had a burger called the Ron Burgundy, and it was served with an egg inside of it on donut bread. It was one of the most delicious things ever. They had to resort to being a food truck and they only do donuts now. It's sad to see how many pandemic casualties there were. Now that I think about it, I lost me. I'm not the same person. I'm trying hard to find myself still, and it's been hard. I can certainly relate to that. It's interesting how fragile your self-identity is and how quickly it can slip through your hands. Thanks for sharing this. I've been struggling with the same but couldn't articulate it. I've never really loved myself, but I find I'm missing my pre-pandemic self more and more. I feel like I'm sharing mental space with a stranger. Idiot customers. They came back after the pandemic ended, and now there are arguably even more idiotic customers. There is this strange correlation I've noticed. The most obnoxious and most self-entitled ones were usually the unvaccinated ones. I work at a sports store, and during the pandemic, we had a few months long period where we had to check COVID passes to allow entry into the store, as we were non-essential. This was around the time of the second lockdown. Don't remember if it was before or after. It was like hell, because I was usually the one standing out in front checking the COVID passes with a scanner on the phone. Even though we had taped off the entrance so that everyone would have to pass around me, there were still people who tried to get in. Unvaccinated people were either trying to get in by lifting the tape or ignoring me. Some were spewing some conspiracy theory bullcrap about microchips or whatever. Some used their chance to get in when I walked away from the entrance for a few seconds. Some people were showing me COVID passes that were clearly not theirs. Some tried to beg their way in, and had some people that wouldn't let me scan their passes because they didn't want me to take photos of their phone. Spontaneity. A lot of the first come, first serve things are now booked months in advance. One small example is the park near my house has a free concert series during the summer. You used to be able to just show up the day of. You had to get there early for good seats, but generally no pre-planning. Now you have to get a ticket a month in advance and they sell out within minutes. Then you still need to show up hella early to get good seats. The belief that I had to be in the office to do my job. I am fully aware that I can do my job completely from home. I don't have to do that horrible commute every day. I'm sure I'll be back to that commute any month now. Affordable food. $100 used to get me meat, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, milk, eggs, cheese, yogurt, drinks, snacks, etc. That would last almost 2 weeks. Now $100 will get me food to last maybe a week? If I ration and only eat once per day a few times. Meat is now a treat if I happen to have a bit of extra money one month. Fruit and vegetables are out of the cans. No dairy at all anymore. Unless it's 1 or 2 of those $1.99 yogurt drinks, which were 75 cents in 2019. Most stuff I eat now is out of the package or cans. You know, I used to be a fast food fiend and I wasn't really cooking anything, but after the whole anxiety and panic attack stuff that I've done with, I've tried to eat a little bit better, and so I don't really know how crazy things were. But I will say buying fish is pretty expensive. The optimism that a global lethal pandemic would lead to our government trying to save lives and change our healthcare structure. In the US, of course. I owe all the zombie movie directors an apology. I always said that if that happened, everyone would band together and unite with a common front to solve the problem, and nobody would possibly be so stupid or selfish. Instead, we had people hoarding toilet paper. Man, did I call this one wrong. During lockdown, I actually felt like my mental well-being improved, and this was for several reasons, but one was that I felt there was less bragging on social media, at least in my family, and there was no family drama with the extended relatives because we weren't visiting each other. Everybody was scared and locked down, so nobody felt jealous of each other. There was bigger fish to fry. Then we got vaccinated, and then came the revenge traveling and revenge dining and so-called war on labor. And my aunts and cousins wanted to hang out again. And that opened the floodgates of family drama and constant sense of competition and no feeling good because that one cousin lost this much weight, one cousin has this much salary, one aunt got this much money from selling her house. I had to be the emotional support for my parents who were falling into these dumb status games. I missed those days in lockdown when my family stayed away and kept their status games to themselves. The 24-hour economy. Everything that was open 24 hours now closes at 9 p.m. Midnight at the latest. Restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, fast food, etc. As a person who worked third shift, I felt pretty normal pre-pandemic, but now I struggle to get my crap done, especially on my days off. My faith in humanity, seeing how unwilling people are to suffer mild inconveniences to try to reduce the chance of others getting seriously ill or dying, or make immunocompromised people able to feel safer in public, has destroyed my faith in others. The illusion that half my family and friends weren't selfish jerks. We had a newborn several months into 2020, and the people who refused to accept that were isolated, at doctor's orders. They fought against every boundary precaution we had for my son, including ones they had no problem with for his older brother a couple years before. These same people tried every loophole possible and put themselves at risk for the whole year. And don't get me started on their sudden anti-vax stance. Not only did they put my newborn at risk, but other valuable family members too. Honestly, most of them are one step away from Q. Most people miss late night shopping, late night restaurants. I've been thinking about opening a food truck only after 11 p.m. because there isn't any competition. I could probably make bank just selling grilled cheese sandwiches. My local value theater. For like a $4 ticket, you could catch movies that had left theaters months ago. Would always do special Sunday screenings of classic films too. I miss being able to walk down and catch a movie or two on a whim. Opened my eyes to older cinema as well. First saw Casablanca and Rebel without a cause there. Fell through about a year after lockdown since it was a mom and pop place that wasn't backed by a major distributor. I used to be really outgoing, loved to go to libraries and coffee shops, just to read and people watch, and loved random social interactions. After all the temper tantrums about wearing masks and people acting generally horribly, people just exhaust me. I don't want to go anywhere anymore. Flying being relatively painless. Yes, it was tedious, but you usually got on your flight, mostly on time, and nobody hit flight attendants, had a toddler meltdown, or tried to open the door mid-flight. Now you need to pad in at least an extra day, and it's scary. Choco tacos. A good reason not to have people over. It came and went during the pandemic, so I still consider that to be disappearing during the pandemic. It was nice to say, nah, we're isolating. I figured why not end this video with a personal story. One thing I missed was having a plan and a goal. For context, at the end of 2020, I quit my job in glorious fashion. Check out the Blaze of Glory video for that story. I decided to become a full-time content creator. I had saved up enough money to cover all my bills, food, gas, and anything else I needed for 6 months. I told myself that I would do everything I could in those 6 months to become a successful content creator. Things were going great for the first 2 months. I made about $1,000 each month from streaming, and I was putting out 10 videos a week across 2 YouTube channels. Then in February, I had a panic attack for the first time ever. Literally thought I was going to die. I was basically bedridden for 2 weeks out of fear. I couldn't even go into my stream room because that was where my panic attack started. I finally started getting better after a few weeks and bam! Another panic attack while I was washing clothes. After that, my brain was shot. I lived in constant fear of having another panic attack. When I thought I was finally getting better, another panic attack would happen, resetting my brain. So this life plan that I had for the next 6 months was ruined by panic attacks. I got lucky with those government stimulus checks that allowed me to pay for my bills when my savings ran out. I lost all of 2021 to just trying to get back to a normal mental state that was livable. I didn't really understand anxiety or panic attacks before. I thought it was just people that couldn't handle pressure. But now that I live with it, man, I feel for people that have had to deal with this their whole lives, or just got them during the pandemic like I did. I'm a lot better nowadays. 2022 was also a struggle, but not as bad as 2021. My best advice is to become more active if you aren't. Start working out every day, drop the junk food, and learn to live with anxiety. It sounds stupid, but it has helped me the most. You gotta fight that urge to get comfortable and just live in the anxiety. Over time, you'll get used to it.
People who have ever hired homeless people with the "will work for food" signs, what was your experience like? One super cold night over Christmas break a couple of years back, my roommates and I were walking to Taco Bell and saw a homeless man laying in the parking lot. He had a cheap thin blanket, so we brought him some food and asked him if he wanted to spend the night inside, and he came back and stayed at our house. Via Facebook, we helped him find his daughter, who he hadn't spoke to in a couple of years. He was able to wish her a Merry Christmas. I spent the night worrying that he would steal everything in the house. When I woke up, the blankets were neatly folded, and he had left us 2 pairs of socks and some deodorant. A week later, we came home to find that someone had raked all of our leaves for us. Haven't seen him since, but I hope he is well. 10 out of 10. Would do again. Lovely story, dig the human kindness. I myself could not help someone to that degree, allowing them in my home, but that's because I have skepticism and doubts in people's human nature. In college, I got my fraternity to hire a homeless guy I always talked to do security for our parties. I went to college in a pretty crappy city, and my fraternity never turned people away from our parties, so we sometimes had to worry about gang members wandering in. I actually met a former Latin king who was pretty cool. The school wouldn't provide security since it could be seen as them condoning underage drinking, so I suggested we hire this homeless guy I knew who was always at my go-to Munchies gas station because he had actually helped me out when I almost got mugged once, and knew a lot of the less than savory characters. We told him we just needed him to let us know if there was anyone he knew might cause a problem. Dude was more professional than most bouncers at the bars I've been to. He made everyone that wasn't obviously a student show their neck and wrists for gang tattoos and ran a tight goddamn ship. Our president ended up getting him a bouncer job at a club downtown. That's a little more my speed. Give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, yada yada yada. I'm sure you all know the saying. I was homeless for 4 years, 15 to 19. One day I applied for a security guard job at the local hospital for a joke. Was punkish at the time. When I showed up, I almost scared the guy off, but he shook it off and asked me to stay for the interview. For the first half hour, he asked me questions one would ask any applicant. After he finished, he looked at me and asked me my story. We sat and talked for close to 2 hours. I got my stuff and was preparing to leave when he came up to me and told me, "Cut your hair, take off the piercings, and be here on Wednesday. You look like a guy that could use a chance in life." I went back to my hole that night and thought things through. It was August 16th, 2001, and I've been off the streets ever since. Sometimes all we need in life is a chance to prove ourselves. That last bit rings so true, but it's such a shame because I've seen a lot of people squander that opportunity in turn or short-term satisfaction. I once picked up a hitchhiker that was trying to get from Washington to New Mexico when I was camping in Yellowstone. He had family in New Mexico that offered to help him and had a good job lined up. He just had to get there. So we packed him up and took him back to Colorado with us. He stayed on our couch for a week or two and picked up our mess and took care of maintenance I grossly neglected. My roommates and I were in college at the time and partied 3 to 4 days a week, so you can imagine the mess. The little money he would get from doing odd jobs for neighbors and such, he would buy food and beer for all of us. One day I had an errand to run about 50 miles closer to his destination, but still 300 plus miles from where he needed to be. He came with me, and when he got out of the car, handed me a letter and said, "Don't read it until I get home," then walked through a field straight towards the Rocky Mountains. When I got home, we all read the letter, and it was the kindest set of words words I'd ever received. About a month later, we get a call from an area code I don't recognize. It was him. He made it and called us on his first payday at his new gig. He also told us about the remainder of his journey. Turns out he walked and camped a large portion of the way back. I have since moved multiple times and grown up a bit. He's still welcome back whenever he wants, though. I hope all is well, Freddy. Maybe it's because I watched the first half of Batman Begins till 2 in the morning the other night, but something about that just sounds so cool. He turned away, walked through a field towards the Rocky Mountains. Cool AF. We've hired hundreds of them over the last 20 years, mainly because I'm lazy and I can make more money with my time doing what I do. The only really memorable one was Tavion. Tavion stopped me in our parking lot one Friday morning and said he needed some work and he was willing to do whatever we had. Just the day before, I'd gotten a notice from the city saying the bamboo on our back lot was getting out of hand, and we needed to get rid of it. It's a little over an acre, and if you've ever seen how bamboo grows, there were thousands of 20-foot stalks. Told him I'd give him $100 to do it. Gave him a machete and figured I'd never see him or the machete again. Over the course of the day, he cut every damn piece of the bamboo down and had them laid in a couple of huge piles. Paid him his money, thanked him, and told him I'd get my guys to haul it to the dump Monday. He asked me if he could have the big pieces first, and I gladly let him. Came back in Monday morning and he was back in the lot helping somebody load a monster-sized load of bamboo onto a trailer. He'd spent the weekend cutting all the branches off and trimming it into 6-foot-long sections and was selling them all for $350 to a local plant nursery he'd done day labor work for in the past. We talked about it for a few minutes after the truck left, and he just kept smiling and saying there was a hustle in everything, you just had to find it. That is some real good advice from Tavion. In Chile, my father and I parked in a sketchy neighborhood when we went to visit some family. Dad sees a homeless guy and gives him $5 and tells him to watch our car. Later, when we're walking back to our car, we see some guy trying to take our windshield wipers. My dad's about to yell something when our homeless guy comes running like a bum out of hell, punches the guy in the back of the head, and the guy runs off. Homeless dude chases after him, but my dad tells him to calm down. Dad gives him some extra cash and we have dinner with him. 10 out of 10 would hire again. Well, technically your father hired him. Also, there's something strange about the possessive language in saying, our homeless guy. I tried once, really just wanted my lawn mowed. Told the guy I'd cook him a meal if he mowed my lawn. All I got was an FU. He was literally holding a sign that said, we'll work for food. Maybe he really was just looking for money. Maybe because I was 19 at the time, he thought I was messing with him. I guess I'll never know. Unfortunate, but perhaps the man's been burnt too many times. Unsure if he was homeless, but a young man on a bike asked to paint the numbers on my curb for a donation. I was noticing that it was illegible just the other day, so made sense to have it done. He'd done my neighbor's house and it looked good enough, so I said yes. We chatted a bit. He said he'd been laid off and couldn't find work. I ended up giving him $10 for about 10 minutes of work. He did a really nice job. 2 cans of paint, a pack of number stencils, and his positive attitude was a good investment on his part. I well and truly hope things worked out for that guy. Sometimes when you fall on hard times, you might not have a glamorous backup plan or anything like that, but as long as you're making money, as long as you haven't given up and just decided to wallow in your failure, I'd say you still have a chance of picking yourself back up. My parents have a house in Florida they rent out. My dad was down there doing repairs to it when a homeless man on a bike stopped by and asked if my dad needed help. Dad decided to hire him. Alton, the homeless man, helped my dad repaint the house, mow the lawn, and cut out all the overgrown plants. When the house wasn't rented and my family was up north, my dad paid Alton to mow the yard and keep an eye on the place. While working with my dad, Alton asked my dad if he could borrow some money to buy some nice pants and shoes for an interview he had for a job. Dad wasn't sure he could trust him yet, so instead my dad took him out to a store and they went shopping together for these items. Alton got the job as a chef and eventually got himself a room in a house with some other guys. Occasionally, Alton will ask my dad for some emergency money and he always finds a way to pay it back. I find it interesting that my dad was so open to work with Alton due to him being both black and poor, those being 2 types of people my dad can say judgmental things about. Either way, I'm glad it all worked out for Alton. Words and the things people say can certainly give us a good insight into the thoughts and feelings of those around us, but at the end of the day, when an opportunity arises, it is the actions people take that they should be truly judged on. My family gave a man a job around our farm who was homeless. He stayed at a house on our property and worked on various jobs. He was a great guy and just made some mistakes by getting involved in illegal substances. He was a great worker and did a lot of good work. Eventually, sadly, his wife came back into his life and got him back on the junk. He pawned some of our equipment off and left. Either way, they can be great workers, but sometimes there are deeper problems that are reasons they are homeless in the first place. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for a betrayal, and this is a pretty damn bad betrayal. Pretty late to this, but hey, I feel good for what I did. I was a shift leader at a Hardee's, Carl's Jr. for you West Coast people, and it was perfectly located near where the homeless and all the skate kids hung out at. Both groups used to come in and harass everyone before I became a shift leader. Once I got to that point, instead of yelling and kicking them out, I decided to sit them down and ask what's going on. Come to find out, many of those teenagers and kids were either living in abusive homes or even homeless. I got the idea to keep the food people mess up and even using my manager meal to feed these poor kids while I could. I became real close with many of them, and to this day keep up on all of them. One in particular used to be in and out of jail a lot. I promise him every time he comes out, I'll buy his first real food. Well, after a while I moved jobs and got him a job where I worked at. A few months later, helping him out with what I could, he got a place. His girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time, moved in and they are doing great and their baby is adorable. Being able to help and understand so many of those kids now really changed my view on so many kids and why they act the way they do. I really have nothing else to say except good job. A lot of these stories have been a lot more positive than I was expecting, and I have very little to say after a certain point. A homeless guy came by my house when I wasn't home and asked my roommate if he could pick up the sticks in the yard. My roommate gave him some money and the guy left without doing anything. A few weeks later, the guy came by when I was home, but my roommate was out. He started telling me I owed him money for cleaning up my yard. I had never seen him before, so I told him to get the hell off my property before I busted his head open. He left and then came back, broke into my house a few days later and stole a guitar I'd had since I was a kid. Heartwarming? No. Well, great googly moogly, is the latter half of the video going to be about how people shouldn't be too naive? I hired a homeless guy years ago when I was a construction superintendent building condos, Frank. He was a super hard worker, always showed up on time, usually before me, waiting at the job site. Frank was a former high school football star and was ridiculously strong, so anything that required brute force was Frank's domain. He also already had a lot of construction experience, so he didn't need to be supervised very much. I got to like Frank a lot. Everyone did. He was a very emotional and passionate guy. He had no problem crying, even at an inappropriate time. But that's what we loved about him. He was just very genuine. But like many homeless people, sadly, he had a drinking problem, and I suspect some illegal substance problems as well. I never knew for sure. I knew he was a drunk, though. I also didn't really care because, like I said, he showed up for work on time and he kicked butt at it. Anyway, since I was young and naive at the time, I took a big chance on Frank. I bought him an old pickup truck for $2,500. He had recently roomed up with this Jamaican guy who seemed okay and had a place to stay. So I figured if I gave him a truck, it might be enough to push-start him into a stable life. He had no driver's license, so I told him we would work to get that taken care of, but only Jamaica could drive for now. He called his Jamaican roommate Jamaica. Well, a week later, he gets arrested for driving without a license and the car gets impounded. I was furious. I cussed him out. He cried. I paid to get the truck out of the impound lot and gave it to another friend who needed a car, and he basically did the same crap. Didn't get his license, didn't take care of legal issues he had, so let the truck just sit at his house for 6 months. I eventually just sold the truck on Craigslist. Interestingly, I ran into Frank a few years ago, and he told me he was taking classes in community college and has a place to stay, so I was happy to hear that. But the lesson is, don't be naive. I hope Frank's doing okay, but you can get burned by being too nice. Some people just aren't ready to fix their own lives, and you can't force it. Yep, that last little bit, literally the most important part. I know it seems like I'm being a pessimistic little B-word, but remember that. No joke, I hired a guy to help clean our house barn. He showed up every day and worked his butt off for months. I noticed this guy had old beaten up glasses and looked like they were 4 inches thick, and when he took them off, he was absurdly blind. I asked him when he had last seen an eye doctor, and it had been over 2 decades. I told him if he continued to save his money for a future studio apartment, I would buy him new glasses. The day finally came when he had saved $1,000, and I honored my word and bought him some new glasses, and it came out to about $400, and he literally started crying when he first put them on because he could see so much better. A few months after that, money started disappearing from the office. This barn was easy to break into if you were skinny because you could slide in under the metal gate just barely enough to get inside. After working with the police, we set up a floor mat that automatically calls the police when it's stepped on. That night, I showed up to the barn with all the police lights illuminating it. Inside the barn, unable to sneak back out of the crack under the metal gateway, was Leroy. When he was arrested, he was drunk and in possession of a pipe for smoking illegal substances. I saw him a few more times on the street, and it broke my heart. These are already getting quite depressing, but it does vary things up a little bit. I mentioned it earlier, but sometimes people give up long-term, real opportunities for work or even friendship in exchange for their baser, more quick relief habits. And if you ever find yourself in that situation, you've got to be able to make the decision on what is better for you and stick with it, as hard as it might be. Once when I was a kid, my dad and I were parking on a moderately sketchy Manhattan street around 8 at night to go to a restaurant. At the time, my dad drove a Lincoln Navigator, and when he parked it, this homeless guy immediately started chatting him up the second we took a step onto the sidewalk. I remember him telling my dad that he'd watch his car for $20 and make sure nobody messed with it while we were eating. My dad gave him the $20, and while we were eating, I asked him why, and he told me because if I didn't give him the $20, he would have slashed my tires himself. When we got out, the dude was still standing there by the car, and well, it was fine. You know what, if that was his true intention, smart homeless man and even smarter father for knowing that that's probably his true intention. I was in my front yard and a man came up to me and asked if I had any work. He said he needed $9 so he could catch a bus to Tennessee to go live with his sister. He said he hadn't eaten in 3 days. He had caught his wife cheating and she threw him out on the streets. I had a couple small odd jobs and he did them. I gave him a bag of food, $20 and a story. Many years ago, after a train trip from Ohio to New York City, I realized I didn't have enough money to get home, to Connecticut. I was jokingly telling the couple that I had been sitting with on the train my woes. The man pulls out his wallet and hands me a $20 bill to tell me to pay it forward someday. The homeless man was in tears, gave me a hug, thanked me, and promised me he would. I hope he is okay. Well, at the end of the day, that's the best you can hope for, that in doing a good deed for someone, they'll keep that good deed in their heart and mind, remember it forever, and hopefully treat people as kindly as you treated them, or, at least maybe change their ways if maybe they weren't as good a person when you met them. This doesn't directly answer the question, but I thought I'd contribute. It's not really much about how good or bad the homeless guy was, but more about how he affected me. I'm not a very good storyteller, but if you want to read on, please do. I was never truly homeless, but I sort of put myself in a situation a few years back. But this is not a story about me, it's a story about my dear friend. We'll call him Sean. I have an advanced education and at the time had decent prospects of a job. I wanted to start my own business, so on a very big opportunity, I started a business, got a warehouse, office equipment, and all that. The promising line fell through, so I went to business plan B. Anyways, my ex is equally educated and stuff, but she didn't want to work to support me while I got my business taking off. Some other personal issues as well, but that is the gist of it. Anyways, we separated, and with a little bit of savings, I ended up living in the warehouse. I did get divorced eventually, since I was on plan B instead of money rolling in. I had to fight tooth and nail to make sales one by one. The business eventually grew and it wasn't doing that bad, but in the beginning it was a dark period of my life for many reasons. Divorce and being very poor was one thing, but one of my parents was diagnosed with an illness just before the split as well. Because of my immigration status, I couldn't really go to see her and I hadn't seen her in a few years. I used to think of some dark things every day for a long time, but a few things kept me going. Grit, determination, and I told myself I had to survive to go and see my parents again. But another thing was my friend Sean, my land manager, a really nice guy that put up with me living in an industrial neighborhood, hires guys in bad situations to help around here and there, ex-cons, homeless guys, etc. To be honest, from what I can tell, a bunch of them were pieces of crap, but not Sean. He lived in a warehouse on the other side of the street. I was in a bad shell where the only time I'd go out and meet other people was to get drunk. Sean helped me get out of this rut. Sean was much older than me, in his late 50s. I was in my mid-20s. He was a straight-up alcoholic. Sean moaned, was relatively sour, and kinda did bare minimum at work, but boy did he know how to fix things. I hired him to do some work around my shop. Even though I didn't really have much money, he always did a good job. He would come over unannounced or knock on my door when I was still sleeping at like 2 p.m. It was exactly sort of the intervention and interaction I needed. He'd tell me about his divorce and about how he was heartbroken, but how time passes and heals most wounds. He'd also tell me about his folks passing. When I was talking about my parent, he sucked at cooking and made really unhealthy stuff, but he'd always bring over food if he made some. Eventually, it got to the point where whenever I felt extremely bad, I'd go over and have a beer or two. Shoot the breeze, listen to his stories of his wild youth, look at some cool memorabilia he collected, pictures of old muscle cars, drag cars he worked on, etc. When it came to working on cars and motorcycles, I had a couple of clunkers. He just helped me for free. I tried to help back by helping him keep down his alcohol intake and listen to him vent when he wasn't drinking. Of course, gave him jobs whenever I needed it and could afford to hire someone. Anyways, we came from extremely different backgrounds, especially since I was largely a kid who grew up in a good family who was pushed to get all the education I can get. Him, on the other hand, had just recently been homeless and living as a bum. In some strange ways, he became my best friend for that year. I grew the business but pulled myself out of the situation. It was no longer worth my time to hang on to this past dream and left for a job interview on a project that I'd get paid handsomely. On the way back, I called him back to check up on him and he told me he was just moaning about his pains again. The years had been very hard on his body and he didn't really take care of himself, so he was always complaining about one thing or another. I just made sure someone in the area knew about it and was checking in on him and didn't think much of that. Anyways, that was the last time I ever spoke to him. He passed away while I was making a cross-country drive back to the city. My good friend Sean came in and out of my life just as he had lived his life. I still kept this Christmas card he wrote me one year. It reminds me to be thankful, for he was there during the lowest points of my life. And to everyone else, you never know who will come in and out of your life to help you move on. That is absolutely the best and my favorite story on this topic. They cultivated a relationship, acknowledged each other's flaws, became friends, they trusted each other, had each other's back, talked about their issues and whatnot, and it's super tragic that his friend died, but at the end of the day, this dude, Sean, obviously left a really lasting, positive impression on him that gave him hope, and you know what? If you've got no hope for yourself, well, God, why not try and cultivate hope for other people? Teens, what is something important that you feel your parents should learn? Do not insist on comparing me to my friends. They do not act the same way in front of you as they might in their own home, and you have no clue how they act when they're at home with their own parents. Done up pretty strong, yeah. I may have heard that once or twice in my teen years. Just because one of my friends is a girl doesn't mean you have to constantly bring her up. What's the story behind that? Do they give you the whole, oh, why don't you take your friend Stephanie to prom? Stephanie's a nice girl. Privacy. My grandmother will come into my room while I'm sleeping just to look through my window above my head to see what the neighbors are doing. She looks above my head to peep at what I'm doing on my phone. She gets mad at me when I don't tell her an answer to a personal question she asks me. She is also untrustworthy and will lie to make a story more interesting, so I can't tell her anything in fear she will spread a rumor that isn't true about me. I once told her how the gym teacher passed away from cancer, and she proceeded to call her friend and tell her my gym teacher dropped dead in front of us at the gym and cancer spilled out of her. If cancer could spill out of you, I wonder what it would look like. I bet everyone's like, I'd probably be like a black tarry substance and really smelly and stuff, but I'm picturing like the Nickelodeon slime. Get my attention before talking to me. They did get mad at me when I miss the first half of what they are saying, but it's because I'm already doing something. I don't mind pausing my game, putting down my book/phone, muting the TV, etc. Just say my name, or even, hey, you, before you start talking so I realize I'm supposed to engage. I think that just sounds like a lack of awareness of your surroundings. Like, I like to know who is in the room with me, what's going on, stuff like that at all times. So it's like, are they on the phone? No. Is there anyone else in the room with me? No. So they're obviously talking to me. It's only annoying when they then turn around and go, oh, I'm just talking to myself. You don't have to listen. I understand that compared to you, I shouldn't have any stress, but teen stress does exist. Maybe in the future I'll learn how naive I was and how small my stresses now are, but right now, what I'm stressed about matters to me. That's super valid, but I will say, yeah, being an adult kinda sucks. Enjoy being a teenager while you can. Don't stop me from hanging out with my friends and then later complain why am I always in my room and not outside enjoying life. That's just unfair. That does sound pretty dumb, but I don't know, it maybe depends on the kind of people that you're hanging out with. Doesn't mean you can't go out and enjoy life, it just means they don't want you to be hanging out with dodgy people. Like I said though, I don't know what the situation is behind this, I'm just trying to rationalize it to some degree. Communication through technology is still communication. I know it's not true for all people my parents' age, but a lot seem to be stuck on the idea that just because you're texting someone or messaging them online, it's somehow not real contact and not a real relationship with the other person. Does someone have an online girlfriend? That's the way they make it sound at the end, especially. While yes, you do pay for my tuition, car, clothing, food, etc., you need to give me some sense of control. Rules are important, I understand, but I need to learn how to function on my own. If you couldn't tell from my brother developing alcoholism the second he got to college, if you control your kids too hard in high school and then let them out into college, they don't know what to do with the freedom and go frickin' nuts. That is some solid parenting advice. That is so true. Don't snoop through my things. If I have a personal note to or from a friend or a piece of writing, don't look through it and read it, and don't send a picture of it to everyone else in the family. It's out of sight for a reason. People might disagree with me, but I kind of think that parents can snoop through their kids' stuff all they want. If they have a habit of doing it, just get better at hiding your stuff. Don't make fun of our relationships. Whenever they see me talking to a girl, they always ask, "Who's your new girlfriend?" They always ask me after school, "How's your girlfriend doing?" Even when they know I'm not in a relationship, or even right after I break up, I know they're not doing it to be mean, but it's little stuff like this that makes me hesitant to share my actual relationships with them. Just remember that this is sort of an awkward time for us, and relationships are no exception. I always try to take it in jest because I know they're kidding, but other people might take it as an insult, or you pushing them to find a girlfriend/boyfriend when they are not ready. Also, just because I've been stressed or mopey doesn't mean I'm gay. It just means I don't feel like talking. I've had to explain twice to my parents that I am not a closeted homosexual. Just sounds like pretty basic parental banter to me, but if it's something that this guy's stressed out about, then yeah, fair enough. We're so dramatic because a lot of things are new. We can feel new levels of emotion. It might seem silly to cry over someone we've dated for less than a year, but this is literally the most heartbroken we've ever been. Our schoolwork is the hardest we have ever done. Our responsibilities are the most daunting. From our perspective, what seems trivial to you is new and terrifying and the most extreme it has ever been. I think I've been gauging this more on like the general situation in that like how relatable is this? I understand this is more of a personal thing, but I'm going to say this, parents are dealing with not as many for sure, but also new stressful situations, and it's not about being an adult or a teenager or something like that, because I've said it before. Adults don't have all the answers, and on the heartbreak thing, think about it like this. Yeah, your heart's broken, you like this girl a lot, but at least this girl isn't divorcing you, she's taken your money, your house, and your dog. She didn't even want the dog when you got the dog, but she certainly wants it now. My advice to anyone when they're in a dire state of mind or something is think about the situation, think about how much worse it could be and where you are as opposed to the worst it could be, and then just get on with your life, because guess what? All of these situations are bigger in your mind than they are in real life. Of course, then there are problems like paying the mortgage on time. That's a big problem. Our problems are real. My mom is really good at understanding this. She gets angry along with me when I mention how my best friend got hit by her boyfriend. She gives me advice when I say that my friends have depression. She gets worried when I'm quiet and easily angered. Not only does she empathize, she helps. She once dialed 911 for a friend who had attempted self-deletion while I told her how to apply first aid. She gave me permission to deck the abusive boyfriend. She lent me her old psychology textbook so that I could better help my friend with depression. She makes me feel comfortable enough to talk about whatever is bothering me. Most people on this thread give very good examples of what not to do. Let my mother be the model for what to do. I mean it every time I say that she is the best mom ever. Okay, now let's talk about my dad. He is every bit as awesome as my mom, just in different ways. He grew up as the oldest son in a ghetto in San Antonio. He was the first in my family to go to college. He's worked for the Air Force, has been a pastor, been a missionary, and is now a higher up at an energy savings firm. Because of him, I've always lived a comfortable life, but it does not stop there. He teaches me everything he knows. I remember him explaining his Excel spreadsheet in 5th grade. In middle school, he started giving me a large monthly allowance and told me to pay for basically everything but rent in order to teach me money management. I'll be honest, I talk more to my mom about emotional problems. She got her degree in psychology after all, but I can talk to my dad about literally anything else. Personal finances, politics, theology, current events, books, movies, anything that pops into my head, I can talk to my dad about. He taught me that even if you can't do masculine things like repair a car or assemble furniture, you can still be one of the greatest men out there. I've learned so much from him, and I learned more every day. I told him about this post and asked him if he had anything he wanted to share with the internet. He said, "When your mother and I first had your older brother, we decided that we would have 2 goals in parenting. That you would know that we love you unconditionally, and that you would know we are always there for you. Everything else we do flows out of those 2 goals." Yeah, he actually talks like that. It's awesome. If there are any parents or teens reading this, strive to be like my parents. I I wouldn't trade them for anything. Sounds like you got a strong nuclear family right there. You got a mother and a father who are both experienced in their own personal areas of expertise that they use to then build you up into a more rounded person and tell you that they love you all the time. Brag much? Nah, this is good. This was a nice game changer. Yeah, that's how a family should be. You can't pause an online game! Oh, I feel the Lord in the house tonight. Testify, brother, testify! I hope you all appreciate the extra oomph I put into that one. So many arguments about that stuff. Don't assume that teen life today is the same as teen life when you were in high school. If your teen doesn't have a history of stereotypical bad teen behavior, don't treat them like they do. Yeah, I agree with that. For one thing, I think a lot of modern kids probably have anxiety because their simplest mistakes or even their biggest mistakes can be immortalized on a phone then uploaded to the internet within a few minutes. On the latter part, I don't know. I see a lot of scummy behavior from kids that I very much doubt they exhibit in front of their parents. Naturally, that's a case-by-case basis, but there are definitely some kids in the world that are unbelievably entitled. If your child doesn't agree with your religious views, back off and let them think it through. Pushing harder isn't helping and will just make them less likely to return to your faith in the future. I hid my true faith from my parents and went along with their faith for years. My sister decided to come out about her views, and that's how I know I made the right choice. Yeah, just generally don't try and force your opinions on kids in general or anything because, they might turn around and decide that they hate you and all of your ideas. Currently 17 and I'm really into technology. I got a job at 15 because I wanted to build a computer and still hold it today. Anyway, the things I buy are mine. I did work for them and yet they still threaten to take them away from me if I act irritable. Being irritable is caused by depression, anxiety, and other crap going on. The constant fighting with my sister that gets on my nerves. Yes, she's screaming, but screaming back will not make her stop. Please, for the love of God, don't downplay my issues. Yes, my girlfriend cheated. Yes, I'm a teenager and maybe it's not that big of an issue, but Christ, don't act like it doesn't affect me and how I act. I have to say, contrary to what I may say in any of these, I always take these stories with a slight pinch of salt. If anything, I wish I could hear the other sides of these things, because in this occasion I wonder, although this kid seems like they're an okay kid, job at 15 and everything like that, clearly has a sense of responsibility and whatnot, that's great. But the real question is here, are you being irritable or are you being insufferable? Just because I don't go out every day does not mean I have no friends. I talk to the same people online every day and see them in class 5 days a week. My parents think I'm antisocial and would get some friends if I go outside. In reality, I am more social when you let me stay in my room. Yeah, I don't really see a problem with that. If you're just staying in all the time whenever you can, that's kind of bad for you. Catch some rays, the sun's great for you. Not in excess, of course. Nothing's good for you in excess. I know that I'm smart and I receive good grades. They just need to learn that I will never be the valedictorian or an honor roll kid or anyone they deem intelligent. I'm a little confused. Do your parents genuinely think you're stupid, or do they simply think you are not living up to the potential that you have? Stop comparing us to your high school selves. Yes, Mom, I know you're a class president, prom queen, valedictorian, and captain of the cheer team, but I'm not you, so stop being disappointed and be proud of what my person can achieve. Well, this is just annoying because now I want to know what you can/have achieved. Asking your child to tell the truth about something, and then when they do, being mad at them about it. I would much rather prefer if when I told you the truth, you would thank me for being honest and lightening the punishment, if any. This isn't just for teenagers, though. My younger sister, who is 4, gets into trouble sometimes, and when my mother asks her about it and she tells the truth, she gets very mad at her. So now, whenever she asks her to tell the truth, she just lies about it. Makes me sad. Well, that makes me sad too, because you know what? When you're telling a child to tell the truth, you need to be a little more gentle about it. Yeah, they told the truth, they were brave. You don't have to reward them or anything. You just have to be cool about it. You can tell them you're disappointed. You can tell them you're upset. You just gotta be cool. I do not have a goddamn time turner. I cannot clean my room, take a shower, do all my homework, feed the cat, clean the litter box, and put together my Halloween costume in 1 hour. I hang out with older people. I'm 15. I mostly hang out with 18 to 20-year-olds I meet through activism/environmentalism, volunteer leadership stuff because the conversations are more intellectually stimulating. There's no dumb drama. They're inspiring people that I look up to a lot. Networking is easier and I've opened up amazing opportunities for myself, and frankly, I just enjoy being with them more than anybody else my age. No, we don't go off and drink booze. No, they're not peer pressuring me into having sex. No, we're not doing illegal substances. They're just nicer people. I know you think 15 is way too young to be doing traveling programs and internships, but I have plans and goals in mind for the future, and as much as I'd like to be your little girl forever, you need to let me grow up and start exploring my options. I don't understand why you can't just be happy that I'm eager about post-sex stuff already like any other parent would. Volunteering and doing environmental work isn't a a waste of time. I'm networking in areas that might be useful in the future. I'm making friends that I actually like. I'm building essential skills like public speaking and fundraising. I'm making a name for myself. I'm enjoying myself, and I'm giving back to the community. Please stop threatening to take away my volunteer work as punishment. Sounds like they're pretty happy doing what they're doing, so I don't understand why they don't just let them. Just, make sure that you remain to be a solid part of their life, give them support and love and stuff like that, and make sure that none of their 20-plus-year-old friends are just waiting for them to turn 18. It might be legal, but I'd still say it's grounds for grooming. Probably too late, but this one bugs the hell out of me. It isn't the 70s and 80s anymore. Yes, we understand that you didn't use your TVs barely at all. You rode your bikes and played basketball, etc., etc. And yes, we understand it's good for us to be active, but we live in a different generation. The generation before them married young, didn't have all the extra time due to technological advances that makes life easier and so on. Things change, and yet parents still parent like they wish they had been 30 years ago. I love my parents to death, but that's my biggest pet peeve with them. That's a conversation I have fairly frequently. I mean, it's weird to think that a couple hundred years ago you'd have until maybe you were 30 or something like that, and that would be considered a full life, maybe for good reason. Lord knows it sucks to get so old that you literally cannot do anything for yourself. But I think as a result, with modern technology, medicine and all that stuff, we have a generation of people that just kind of stay as teenagers for a lot longer than they probably should. That ain't me judging or anything like that, but always keep in mind that you should really get your life on track. Learn to use a computer. Oh god, I super get this one. I think my mother only learned how to use a computer, or, she uses a tablet really, about 5 or so years ago. What's really annoying is that she still doesn't know how to copy and paste. Because I said so is a crappy reason. Depends on what they're asking you to do. It's not weird for a Hispanic truck driver to deliver to the Hong Kong market. Ah, yes, the immortal rivalry of the Chinese and the Mexicans. Your favoritism towards my sister devastates me. I mean, how can they help it? She's so much cooler than you. I kid. Favoritism, at least really, really blatant favoritism that results in, neglect is really awful.
Parents commenting on how I spend my money. I only spend about 20% of what I make on things I frickin' want that I now have to hide. This is how my closet under my bed is now full of Magic the Gathering cards. If they only knew how much I spent.
I don't know, card games are kind of a money sink. I mean, you get into them and then you gotta keep up with expansions that introduce new mechanics into the game, because then your old decks are kind of obsolete based around the new hotness of the game. I play Digimon, the card game, sometimes. I haven't bought any for ages because I just look at how many I have and go, ugh, and then I've missed expansions and I don't really want to get into new expansions. It's a whole thing. Don't get into card games unless you are acutely aware that you are probably going to spend a lot of money if you're really getting into them. You shouldn't try to tell your kids what choices to make for things like college or uni. Sure, you can help them, but don't try to tell them to do something that they don't want to do. Well then please, just don't choose a topic that's utterly useless in the real world and won't make you any money, and then complain and moan that everyone else should pay for your education. That might sound critical of me, but with the power of the internet, you can honestly learn all of these things that you could at university for free. Which is why my position on college and university learning personally is that you should take a few years off, do things, live your life, figure out what you actually want to do and what you enjoy doing, and then go to university with the knowledge of what you want to do and that you love doing is worth pursuing and paying for. But hey, I'm just a disappointed voice on the internet that as of yet hasn't gone to university, so what does my opinion matter? Do not tell your children if they were gay you would not go to the wedding. It's like saying that if I don't fit your mold, I'm not worthy of your love. It's also setting yourself up for years of distrust. I want to be open and I want them to be a part of my life so badly, but if they knew anything, even suspected anything, they wouldn't want to be a part of mine. The job of a parent is to guide, discipline, and love unconditionally. You can't change how your kid came out, but you can still love them. My parents should learn that if I could be different, I would be. If I could change myself, I could be their definition of normal. I would be. My parents should learn that my wildest dream is for them to love me for exactly who I am, just as much as I love them. I totally agree with the general message here, gay teens getting kicked out of homes. It's real freaking hard on them, being left out in the elements and no one to love them and stuff, and usually falling into bad habits or with people that take advantage of their emotional state. But I do believe that there are limits to unconditional love. For example, killing someone in cold blood, being a kitty fiddler. Just two examples of things that I would personally disown anyone for. But just being, not exactly set to the mold that people expect of you, it's complete bullcrap when people disown you for that. Stop thinking you know everything. I can't get over this. Whenever my mom and I are doing something that involves modern technology, she just takes over like she knows everything and messes it up. I know what to do and try to tell her calmly, but she doesn't listen and sends everything to hell. 2. Whatever people say or write is not me. Whenever my mom goes through my things, she sees what other people have wrote and accuses me of writing them. She then tells me to tell her the truth, which I do, and I will still get accused of lying. Privacy is real. You were a teenager and I am a teenager. I go through a lot and the least I can get is some privacy. I can go on Google and search for something and she'll come into my room and start reading what I'm typing out loud or stand behind me watching what I'm doing. She'll also go through my phone, which is annoying. I just log out of my stuff now. 4. Stop calling me every 5 minutes. School is long, hard, and tiring and I get frustrated. I go home and try to relax before chores. Mom comes home and starts calling me 24/7 over little things. One day I actually just stood leaning on the wall waiting for her to call me, so I didn't get comfortable. 5. Let me go places without you. I can't even go to a school football game without my mom saying I'm not going by myself. Then she complains why I'm always indoors. My mom also makes me do other irritating stuff which I don't follow anyway, like reading 2 to 4 chapters of the Bible before going on the iPhone, iPad, computer, TV, or playing games, GTA 5, Mortal Kombat X, etc. Limits on all devices. Well, I say, son, they don't sound like wholesome Christian games. I say, you gotta play yourself some Yakuza. Oh man, that just hit me. Mortal Kombat X was the last Mortal Kombat game I bought. Is it that old now? It's almost 10 years old, goddamn. I would say to them the American dream idea is dead at this point in time. You could work hard and go to the right schools and have it still not pan out later in life. Half of the kids graduating higher education levels are having trouble finding jobs. So get off this idea that hard work leads to success, because it just is not true at this point in time. I see where this person is coming from a sense that I see a lot of things nowadays where, depending on what your sense of success is, whether it be followers or money or whatever like that, people do stupid, inconsequential stuff, and for some reason it brings them success. But guess what? Things might not work out the way that you wanted them to if you applied loads of hard work in school or on a topic or cultivating knowledge that you wanted because you thought, yeah, this will make me successful. But you know what? Life doesn't work like that. You now have the knowledge to do something, and you need to keep on striving and looking for the opportunities that you can get to apply that knowledge and those skills that you have cultivated yourself. It might take time before you can actually apply those things in a way that you deem makes you successful or content with life or whatever, but please, for the love of God, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on working hard and working towards your dreams. Forensic scientists, what is the most WTF case that you ever had? A friend of mine is a CSI, and I don't know if he's posted here, but just in case he hasn't, I'll put this here. Anchorage, Alaska, 2008. A 27-year-old woman hasn't paid her rent in 4 months. The landlord gave her a bit of a reprieve because he knew she was very poor and she was in a low-income housing. But after 4 months of zero contact, enough is enough, and he calls the cops to get into her place and either see her to talk or change the locks and remove her stuff to a storage shed so the apartment can be released to someone else. The cops find the front door to be bolted and use the landlord's key to get in, then find the woman dead in her shower, just sort of slumped as if she fell against the wall and slid down. The water wasn't on, and as this is Alaska and in the winter, the water is never shut off by the city because if hot water isn't moving through the pipes, they freeze and burst. The fact that her shower is off means she never turned it on or someone turned it off. The body is taken to the morgue and autopsied at the family's request because no obvious means of death can be found. As far as the examination could conclude, she died from an adrenal surge causing her heart to stop, more commonly known as frightened to death, which yes, can actually happen in some rare cases. The body was old, but no test showed any residual illegal substances in her system. None were found in the apartment, nor was there any sign of anyone having entered or left before the cops. The young, pretty average health woman appears to have gotten into her shower, and then her heart stopped due to terror. As far as I know, that's where the story ends. No substantial evidence. When I was pretty young, I got into all of the procedural crime shows and stuff like CSI, Law and Order, just all those things, so I'm kind of interested in this topic. A friend of mine is a forensic scientist, and her department dealt with burglary cases only, usually generating pretty uninteresting stuff to tell people. But her only good story is that once she got a pair of gloves found at a crime scene. She went to examine them and felt that there was something hard inside. She turned the gloves up to get it out, and out falls a thumb, ripped off at the first joint. Apparently, this particular burglar was holding up a safe while his mate went underneath it, dropped the safe on his hand, hand, ripped his hand out and ran. They obviously caught the guy. The only interesting story they have, kind of rude, but I wonder if whoever caught them was like, so, was it worth it? A friend is a psychologist whose previous life was in crime scene photography. She went to the scene of a self-deletion in a garage. This guy had a project car that he worked on his whole life. When he decided to end it all, he wanted to go with the car. So he shut the garage and turned on the engine and waited. To top it off, he had taken a bunch of pain and sleeping pills. When my friend got there, it was a good while after his death. EMTs and other specialists were there looking for details and whatnot. He was the VP of a fairly large chain of local businesses, so there was an insurance settlement to consider. My friend is in the middle of photographing the scene and the guy was laying there, pronounced dead hours ago, and he suddenly just shook hard. She thought it was a death rattle, so she kept taking pictures. Eventually, the guy sat up and nodded, and the EMTs were called back in to stabilize him and eventually save him. Apparently, the car had run out of gas right at the moment he went out, and he was pronounced dead on the scene. He couldn't talk or do much, but he had actually survived.
I don't know what the laws are in Alaska. I was gonna say he was lucky, but then I thought about the fact that he's probably being arrested for attempting self-deletion.
Forensic chemist here who occasionally gets called out to crime scenes just to consult on evidence collection. On the first one I ever went on, a father had killed his adult son and put the body in a deep freeze that was in his bedroom. There were a ton of cops and the other people from our lab there, but when the coroner asked for help removing the body from the freezer, I volunteered quickly, as I had never been that close to a dead body, other than funerals, and was curious. As I helped the coroner lift the body out of the freezer, which still had a bunch of food in it too, a pack of frozen biscuits was stuck to his body. I had to pry them off of him, which was both very weird and kind of funny at the same time. I often ponder, like so many other people do, what my final moments will define me as in the face of those who know and love me, as well as strangers who may be there to witness my downfall or whatever. And you know, there are people who obviously you know and care about, who love you, but that will remember you fondly, and then there are people like this who are just like, oh yeah, that guy who got biscuits stuck to him. Tragic story though. EMT here. We had a guy who was naked, bloodied, and tortured, then left outside in -10-degree weather until he froze. We found him literally frozen maybe a day after the fact. Now, my question is, how the hell do you move a 230-pound popsicle without breaking it? Very, very carefully, I imagine? I interned at the office of the chief medical examiner when I was 18, saw a lot of interesting stuff, learned a lot of interesting things. One case stuck with me more than the rest. I arrived one morning, went down to the basement where bodies were laid out for rounds every morning. On tables lay the usual, a couple of folks who died in the hospital and needed a partial autopsy to sign off on a death certificate, an illegal substance overdose, an illegal substance murder. Then on one table, there was a blue Tupperware bin, a big one, about 3 by 3 by 2. It was filled with concrete, and out of the edges a little plastic wrap was lining between the concrete and the bin, and then out of the top of the concrete a couple of toes were poking out. The story was, out in the country, a family saw a small fire in the woods outside of their house. They called the fire department, and after putting out the flames they found this bin. When we cracked the bin open, we found half of a man, about from the belly button down. Someone had thought the best way to dispose of this body would be to cut it in half, wrap it in plastic, put it in a Tupperware bin, fill the bin with concrete, and set it on fire. What they had really done was essentially cook the body in an oven with the plastic wrap acting as a roasting bag. Skin was sloughing off of the legs and feet, and the skin was discolored by this time, a nice green. Though this was about 10 years ago, I still distinctly remember being able to make out saw marks on the top edge of this half, however. Notes were taken and no signs of death were found on the legs and no indication of the person's identity either. Unfortunately, my internship ended a few weeks before they found the top half, so I never got to learn more about the case, but the image still certainly sticks with me till now. I once considered doing an internship at a morgue myself, but you know what? Some of the things you'd see in there would probably just, like they said, stick with you for the rest of your life, or at least a really long time. I'm not a forensic scientist, but did forensic anthropology as part of my degree. When handling a rib cage, a ton of flakes came off and ended up lodged in my mouth, nose, and eyes thanks to a friend. Yummy, flaky rib cage bits. Forensic genetic in Mexico. I've seen some serious stuff. I was assigned to the identification of mass graves, over 300 bodies, dismembered, scattered, and burnt. It was just one site. We had many. I'm gonna presume that's the work of the cartels. Stepfather used to be a police officer and loves telling stories about crime scenes. He went on to tell us about how after a motorcycle rider was struck by a train, he went under the wheel. His torso was found about 30 feet from his legs. They were connected by an intestine, so he picked up one end of the intestine and started to wrap it up like a rope. I defer back to the young man who had frozen biscuits stuck to his dead body. Just imagine that. You're dead on the floor and some guy's just wrapping up your intestines like he's putting away the garden hose. It's a rather surreal thought. My cousin is a coroner and the worst was he came to get a body in a trailer during the summer. Man had been dead at least a week and it burst. He said the smell was the worst of his life. He and the other guys were up to their ankles in fluids and had to throw out his clothes and shoes. His boss felt so bad that he bought them each a new pair of like $300 shoes. I was literally watching Seven last night. It's a film with young Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Do not recommend it for the faint of heart. And that's what I'm picturing. Like the crime scenes in it are super gritty and horrible. Like you would not want to be there. And that's what I'm imagining this trailer as. Not me, but there was a great case that I can't currently find on Google. I hope it was true. A woman was found dead in her bed with blood everywhere, and I mean everywhere. There were wine glasses or drinking glasses throughout the house with blood in them. I think blood may have been smeared about as well. So the investigators assumed some bizarre ritual, a gang of people, the whole 9 yards. Long story short, she had some strange clotting problems and was bleeding out of her mouth for an extended period of time. She probably got hazy from the loss of blood and was just trying not to make a mess in her house, so she kept spitting the blood in glasses. Eventually, she was overcome and died in her bed. I only hope it was true because I don't want to propagate lies. I was about to say out of context the whole "I hope it's true" is a bit weird. I did an internship at a PD one year. I got to be with a forensic team for a week. I got to see the aftermath of what a stabbing looks like. A 113 stab wound aftermath. Yes, 113 is correct. Unreal amounts of blood. I used a kitchen knife. Upon first inspection, it appeared like a dozen because there was so much blood on the body they couldn't tell how many there actually was. Gruesome. I actually personally know someone who was almost decapitated in a similarly excessive and brutal way. They survived and they were a very nice person. They moved away a good long while ago and, well, I hope they're doing well. I regularly post on Unsolved Mysteries, so I thought this was fitting here. One of the best cases on Forensic Files was a cold case that had gone unsolved for decades. A man told police he had picked up a hitchhiker in the evening. After the man and the hitchhiker got into a fight, the man threw him out of his car 2 miles away from his mother's house on a busy highway. The man later came home to his mother's house only to find the hitchhiker at his mother's house. He left to go call the police from a payphone. This was before cell phones. The police found his mother dead in bed. The man was a beneficiary of a huge life insurance policy and was the prime suspect. The cops or anyone did not believe the man's story. It was inconceivable that the hitchhiker, who did not know where the mother's house was, could make a 2-mile journey which turns in a neighborhood to just randomly break in and kill the man's mother who he didn't know. But there was blood at the scene and a palm print on the staircase that was not the man's nor the mother's. After some investigation, people at Hardee's did confirm that there was a man that fit the description looking to hitchhike. Still, they just assumed the man had paid the other man to kill his mother. 15 years later, after the invention of CODIS, the DNA was matched to a career criminal who definitely matched the description of the hitchhiker. After bringing him in and interrogating him, the killer had no idea he had killed the mother of the man who gave him a ride. He simply walked through this neighborhood looking for a house that looked empty, and his mother's was the only one without the lights on. It's baffling. It also sounds like just plain awful luck. I was at a regional medical center in rural Guatemala when we had a case come in from an RTA, road traffic accident, involving a pedestrian and a chicken bus. For those who don't know, a popular but incredibly dangerous form of public transport are retired American school buses that have been painted all sorts of vibrant colors, but underneath, the mechanics are shot to hell. Anyway, this pedestrian had been hit by one of these rolling death traps, which was fully loaded going around 80 miles per hour, and ended up getting wrapped under the front right wheel arch and completely mangled beyond recognition. They found bits of this guy spread 2 kilometers down the road, and the initial impact had split his torso down the middle and basically turned him inside out. When all the bits had been collected, the height of the body bag was around 2 inches, so you can imagine the state of the remains. Passers-by helped us pick up bits from the side of the road, but dogs and cats ran off with a fair amount of the smaller bits. Guatemala is a cool place. First of all, I also never heard of a chicken bus. I assumed it was literally that, a bus for chickens to be transported to wherever chickens need be. Second of all, my God, he was bloody... there's barely anything left of him if that's the case. Not a forensic scientist, but I majored in anthropology, with a focus on forensic anthropology. Given that, I was a fairly regular reader of the Forensic Science Quarterly. Here are a couple that I remember. Kid found on top of an elevator in a 6-story dorm. Apparently, he was elevator surfing, which is just as dumb as it sounds. He somehow got his head caught in the cables and got it twisted around a couple of times. This did not immediately kill him. He died from asphyxiation, which means he had anywhere from 30 to a couple of minutes to contemplate what had happened to him before he lost consciousness. Another one was sort of a mystery case. Headless corpse found in a truck in a national park. No head was to be found in the immediate area. Truck was turned on but had run out of gas. The wound was very clean, no sawing, almost like a guillotine cut. The investigating authorities were rather confused, but eventually they found a receipt in his pocket for 50 yards of nylon rope. They widened the investigation and eventually found the rope tied to a tree with a noose at the end. Further searching of this area eventually turned up the head. Pretty unique method of self-deletion. Mystery solved. This one isn't from the magazine, but a story personally relayed to me from the officer involved. A call comes in for a 50-ish black woman dead in a garage. Investigation reveals it is actually a 35-year-old white male. Dude put on a dress, rigged a noose to his garage door opener, and proceeded to watch some smut in his garage while choking himself with the garage door opener. Battery in the remote died, and then so did he. I am reminded of an episode of BoJack Horseman. I had a professor who was an expert in osteology and would train radiologists and doctors to recognize defensive fractures in arm bones. Defending yourself from an attack can leave a very distinctive spiral fracture on your forearm, and in his years of research, he'd never encountered that specific fracture pattern anywhere except in a defensive wound. Until he was attending a seminar at the University of Toronto in February, and when leaving the lecture, he was walking down an outdoor flight of stairs when someone called out to him to ask a question. He had his hands in his pockets because he wasn't wearing gloves, turned, slipped, and fell while perpendicular to the steps. His forearm hit the step and resulted in the exact spiral fracture he'd never seen anywhere else. And best part is that the radiologist that examined him was someone he himself trained to look for this sort of fracture as a warning sign for domestic violence. I'm picturing the dude who fell goes in, his student or former student, the radiologist examines him and is like, "Sir, has your wife been hitting you?" A bit late, but this is my area, so why not go for it? I'm in third year as a forensic anthropology student, so I don't have my own cases yet, but I've studied hundreds and have been told about some. My professor in advanced forensic methods was one of the leads in the case of Anthony Hardy, who basically killed people, dismembered them, and put their body parts in bins that were eventually found by a homeless guy. Another one she worked on, actually all I'm going to list were ones she was involved with, involved a man who went to park his car in his garage as he normally did, but his wife's car was in the spot. She refused to move it, so naturally, he stabbed her about 17 times, put her in his boot, and drove off. He explained the bloodstains away as being animal blood of something he'd hit, carried home in his boot, and cut it up on the garage floor. Obviously, this was a crap excuse, as simple blood testing showed it was human. She ran us through the forensics involved in that case, and it was quality stuff. One was a man found with his wrist and throat cut sitting on the floor of his living room. Depressed old man. Self-deletion, right? Wrong. The cut to his throat stopped halfway across and was at an unusual angle. The stopping halfway through is a good sign of holding someone from behind, reaching around and slitting the throat. Stopping halfway is in that position, it's much harder to fight a struggle. Also, the wrist wound had very little blood and was evidently done after the throat slit. The way he was sat showed that it was likely a loved one, as his body was taken care of, as strange as that sounds, and placed in a loving position. Possibly the weirdest one, a woman was found dead in the hole at the bottom of the stairs with blunt force trauma to the skull. There was a large hole in the ceiling above her, and the situation told to the forensic team by the police is that she fell through the loft. In the loft, no boxes were moved, and there were loads around the site of the hole. If she fell, she would have grabbed out, right? More damning, it was clear, by some sawdust in the state of the slats, that someone had used a saw to cut through the wood. Also, the blood splatter on the wall was all wrong. Basically, what had happened was that her husband had smashed her head in, put her at the bottom of the stairs, cut a hole in the loft, called the police, and told them of the accident. He also tried to kill the family liaison officer in the kitchen when the police were there after he realized the jig was up. Seen a lot more stuff than that. Self-deletions that look like murders but no evidence found, vice versa, bodies found in burnt buildings, bodies found in swamps or moors from years back, terrible labs for the production of illegal substances, even got sort of taught how to make illegal substances actually. Mass graves, photos, grapes, murder victims, it's pretty grim at times. I'm just picturing the dude who left his wife at the bottom of the stairs and everything thinking, oh yeah, I'm smart, I'm real smart, I'm like a Columbo villain. From a family friend, people who do lots of yoga involving rolling their heads around the axis of their neck, over time it wears away the corners of the vertebrae, which is why you're not supposed to do it. He saw a few cases of people getting into relatively minor car crashes. What should have been a nasty case of whiplash instead becomes fatal, as their spine was weakened and can't stop the momentum of their head. So it just pops right off of the spinal column. The head doesn't fly away or anything, it's still held on by muscle, but the driver is just as dead. I gotta be honest, through all of the violent descriptions of the things that happen to people in this, I'm just getting like a blast of the X-rays from Mortal Kombat or something of whatever I'm describing. It's crazy. I'm not even a Mortal Kombat fan. I'm more of a Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue guy. Hell, if you catch me in the right mood, I might want to play Dead or Alive more than friggin' Mortal Kombat. An ex-journalist once told me the story that got him out of journalism. He covered a story where there was a house fire. Police suspected arson. Then they discovered the body of a young girl in the house. It was not the owner's, but a local girl whose mom was a junkie. Turned out that the mother was pimping her daughter out to the owner. Some local residents knew he was a nonce and set fire to his house, killing him and the girl. That's just sad. I mean, I don't give a crap what happens to a nonce, but the kid, oh man. I am a wound researcher, currently specializing in genetic changes along wound healing phases. Forensics does a lot of research into this, as the progression of a wound reveals a lot about time of death, conditions, etc. Prior to this, I had worked with cadavers and stuff, majored in neuropsych, premed roots, so lots of bloody stuff. I thought that I had a low squeamish index, as I see most stuff as a part of life. Holy crap, these studies I am reviewing right now. Apparently, a lot of people have massive chronic wounds that go untreated for a long time because they're diabetic, and A, don't have the proper vasculature for proper nociceptor function, and B, don't care enough about their bodies. So forensics can help differentiate whether a wound existed prior to death or not, and studies also look at different subpopulations to show wound progression in general, and some studies show graphic pictures to depict this. Seeing a morbidly obese man's leg split open like a wilted banana peel put me off work for a day. I couldn't crop the picture out and I scrapped the paper from consideration because the images comparing injury progression and chronic wound changes post-death were full of the most messed up diabetic wounds. I get that it's not a grisly murder, but I can handle that sort of stuff. I feel empathy for combat wound research I cover, and I don't recoil from any of those cases. Pressure ulcers don't flinch me. But diabetic wounds? I need to get back into brains. I checked some of the examples of wounds that this individual talked about, and yeah, they're all pretty gross. And yeah, the diabetic wounds are pretty damn bad. Worked a burglary one time where the homeowner left in the morning and came back to discover their house had been broken into during the day. Normal things were stolen, electronics, cash, jewelry, etc. But what was left behind is a head scratcher. The burglar took a dump on the toilet seat cover and then covered it nearly with a towel. The victim wanted it collected for DNA processing. Nope. Forensics swabbed it and left it for the homeowners to handle. I gave them some latex gloves and wished them luck. Full disclosure, I'm a cop, not forensics. Men, what's the most creepy thing a woman has ever done to you? Enraged in the middle of the argument, she took my fish out of the aquarium and threatened to step on it. I saved the little guy. It was a beta, if you want to know. Takes anger out on small creatures. That right there, my friend, is a red flag. Cut off all of her pubic hair, put them in between layers of scotch tape, crammed them in an envelope with a pair of her used panties, and put the envelope under my windshield wiper. There was a note that read something like, "I know we can't be together, but now you'll always remember me." She was right. It's already been stated what she was trying to accomplish. I just can't fathom as to why she came up with that. Probably not as exciting as most here, but still super frickin' weird. I was staying at my friend's house, sleeping in his guest room. Friend is at work, his girlfriend is at home. One thing about this room is that it has a very heavy door that has to be held open by something super heavy or else it slams shut. Well, I sleep with the door closed. I wake up in the morning, and as I do every morning, I laid there for a bit longer before actually getting out of bed. Well, this time, all of a sudden, I see the door open, the light is still off, but the hallway light being on means I can see if someone's standing in the doorway. I have my eyes kind of opened and I can see that she's just standing there in the doorway, staring at me. I didn't move. I wanted to see what the hell would happen because this was thoroughly freaking me out. She just stood there for at least 10 minutes, didn't look away, didn't walk around the room. I was laying at a weird angle where I could see her perfectly. She could see me, but she couldn't see that my eyes were half open. I thought she may have been in there to grab something because there's a bunch of stuff in the closet, clothes and such. Nope. 10 minutes I waited for her to do something or to walk out. Finally, I flinched and feigned waking up and I heard her run out and slam the door. I got up, went to the kitchen, and she was as bubbly as could be, acting like nothing happened. Acting like she didn't just spend 10 minutes watching me sleep. I kind of think if you were just laying there watching her, watching you for like 10 minutes, if that was even as long as it happened for, I think you were hoping for something to happen. I would have just said, hey, why are you staring at me? Can I help you? Do you want something? Dated this girl who I later found out to be literally a compulsive liar and also into witchcraft. After not being able to deal with her insanity anymore, I broke things off. She would wait outside my door for God knows how long until I came home and say she left something at my house. This happened a lot. One day, I was going to add a new email account to my phone and realized that her email account was still saved on my phone. I shouldn't have checked it, but she was actively stalking me and I needed to know what I was up against. There were tons of emails to some witchcraft lady she found online somehow. All about me. She was paying this internet witch like hundreds of dollars an hour for what I would consider witch consulting. It was all about me. How to cast spells to get me back, how to enchant me, how to curse my new GF, all kinds of crazy crap. She was using this lady as like a weird therapist almost, asking her a bunch of relationship questions too. This went on for months. The witch lady was getting a little annoyed at her, I could feel, although she couldn't complain that much because she was draining her for literally thousands of dollars. She told the witch that at some point I told her that she needs to seek professional help. The witch actually told her that might not be a bad idea. She ended up moving into the house of a mutual friend, this girl from school that was literally one building away from mine. My friend told me that she was always burning weird spices and candles. It was at the direction of the witch, actually. It was creepy as hell, and eventually she cut my brakes. I'm reminded of this time I saw that some witches were trying to spiritually take down Allah or something and needed like a lot of witch power to be able to defeat him. Because, you know, Allah is just so spiritually powerful, you need as many witches as you can get. But also, yeah, she pretty cray-cray. I fell asleep sitting next to one of my friends on the way home from a school trip in 12th grade. I woke up to her using my hand to play with herself. As I began to regain consciousness, she threw my hand at me and made a huge scene about it. I never talked to her about it. It bothers me to this day. Definitely top 3. Say what? That's gotta be considered assault on some degree. What the figgity yuck? Girl I had seen for 2 dates had her best friend SMS me anonymously claiming we went in a bar the night before and offering to come over to my place. I rarely went to bars as I worked night shift at the time, so I knew I hadn't met anyone at a bar. Eventually, after probing and pushing, I got the girl to confess. She said she was just testing to make sure I was trustworthy. Didn't see her again. I understand the need, the want, the desire for a trustworthy man in your life, but goddamn, there are better ways to go about it than that. Smarter ways, even. Met a girl at a bar and we ended up back at her place. We fooled around and fell asleep. She seemed normal all night and I saw no red flags at all. I definitely would have dated her again, until she went crazy. I woke up at around 5 a.m. and started getting dressed to leave. I had to get home and get ready for work. She woke up while I was dressing and totally freaked out. She was screaming angrily, "You can't leave!" I explained I needed to go to work and that I'd call her later. She was having none of that. Then she attacked. I literally had to physically fight my way out of her apartment with a few scratches on my arm for souvenirs. I have no idea what her deal was, and I never went back to the bar I met her in. What's the problem, girl? He said he'd call you back. I mean, I guess there's a chance that he's lying, but, you know, what the hell? This happened to a buddy of mine, except she threatened to call the police and say that he raped her if he didn't stay. He nervously left the apartment. She called the cops and pressed charges. He lost his job, his sanity, everything. She eventually admitted nothing happened, yet his life was already crumbled into pieces and his reputation ruined. She never suffered any consequences. Be careful out there. It's sad but true, yeah. Some women will do you like that. A girl broke into my house 3 times in a week while I was rehearsing, Celeste. Each time she left money to repair the window, a large bag of Twizzlers, and 2 cans of tuna for my cat. That was it. We had never been romantically or physically involved. We barely even knew each other. This oddly sounds to me like the modern version of the humble beginnings of a festive or cultural celebration of some sort. Once a year, around the globe, women break into men's apartments and leave Twizzlers and cat food, whether they have a cat or not. That'd be crazy. Really drunk chick asked me to dance and proceeded to keep trying to pull my willy out, like forcefully. When I'd finally resisted enough, she called me a nerd and stormed off. You're not a nerd, buddy. You're a survivor. I was probably 9. It was after church service, and there's this new lady there who took a liking to me. She was the new wife of the minister. We were outside waiting for the grown-ups to come out. I think they were having a meeting inside, and this new lady took me to a bench nearby. We sat, asked me lots of questions. Then she put my head on her lap, stroked my hair while humming a lullaby like I'm a baby. It felt really uncomfortable, and I really wanted to escape, but I was a shy little boy and didn't want to offend her or something. Saw my sister from afar snickering at us. It went on like this for 30 minutes, but felt like hours. I was dying with cringe inside. If I were that child's sister, there'd be a point if it really went on for 30 minutes, which I highly doubt this woman sat there on a bench and stroked this random child's head for 30 minutes unless she really is a little bit unstable. But there'd be a point where you're kinda concerned, right? Weird. I had a similar experience when I was younger that your story made me rethink. I lived in a neighborhood with middle-class housing. I had a friend whose parents were divorced, so his mother lived right down the street from me, and when he wasn't with his father in Hawaii, he was with her. So I was young, like 10 or 11 years old. My friend was with his father at the time, so he was not there. I was walking home, and when I was walking past his house, his mother was outside sitting in front of her garage smoking a cigarette. It was odd since we never really spoke other than standard pleasantries. I was respectful, as you should be. She made me sit on her lap while she talked, and she, for whatever reason, kissed my cheek multiple times with her arm around me. I know, sounds hentai AF, but I can assure you this happened. I can't for the life of me remember what she was saying since I was a kid that was only focused on getting home. She had red lipstick on, which was now on my skin, of course. Moving along, after a while, she let me go and I walked home where my mom prepared me a bath. She asked me about the lipstick and I told her what happened. She didn't react much, but thinking in hindsight, she may have freaked out. Nothing happened after that, and I was a very optimistic child who didn't think much of it. I think that she was lonely without her son. She lived alone and I don't recall her having visitors. Just thinking as a parent in 2020, having your 10-year-old son come home with lipstick on his cheek would be a huge yikes. Yeah, that one's just a tad bit sketchy in my opinion. Met a girl at a party. We flirted, then we ended up in my bedroom. This was in my apartment. Heavy makeout. I suggest having intercourse. She declines. Heavier making out, basically including anything that's not intercourse. I suggest having intercourse again. She declines. Fair enough. We stopped the making out and planned to see each other again. The day we were supposed to meet, she stood me up. I had cooked and it was already time to meet. She told me that she doesn't want to see me again because I wasn't pushy enough. She liked men who are less soft and gentle. She basically told me that when she said no, I shouldn't have listened. Good riddance, I say. I don't care if a woman means yes when she says no. I take out a dictionary and I show her the meaning of no because that's what she said. Plus, in this day and age, how can you not be absolutely paranoid all the time that people are like recording conversations to like use in future courts of law or something? Keep in mind I'm only a junior in high school. I was about in 7th or 8th grade and I was at a New Year's party at my grandparents' house with all of their friends. You can tell I'm a party animal spending my New Year's with 60 and 70-year-olds, and one of their friends who I'd known for a while continued touching me and grabbing me in my waist and thigh region. She would sneak it in like under the table or walking past each other or whatever. I totally understand the stereotypical grandma cheek pinch or whatever, but this was something else. After squeezing my butt with both hands, I had enough and said something to her. The rest of the night was super awkward, but the worst part was my grandma was defending her and downplaying the whole situation. It wasn't until I told my mom the next day she lost her temper on my grandma that she finally admitted she was wrong, and I haven't seen her since. For clarification, the person they haven't seen since is the groper. Well, here goes. I'm in high school and we're having PE. A girl that I hardly know asks me, "Hey, you want to see my butt?" And I say, no. She then proceeds to pull her whole pants down right in front of 30-odd students and the PE teacher. Everyone was just like, WTF, and she just pulls him back up and walks away like nothing happened. Someone I worked with sniffed the inside of my jacket that I forgot to bring with me. Later, she gave me a date with her as a wedding gift only to be used before the wedding, and asked me if I was truly happy on my wedding day. Some people really do choose to strike at the worst or weirdest times, don't they? Older woman was cutting my hair. She was 60, I was about 24. She rambled on about how she loves bearded men and I might be old, but I can still look at the menu. She then told me about how she likes to go to clubs with her son in his 40s because she's his wingman and likes younger men. While this was happening, she kept running her hands down the front of my shirt. I later brought it up to the other employees there, who just laughed it off and said, oh yeah, that's just her. Apparently sexual assault is just part of her personality. The compliments didn't bother me too much until she started getting handsy. I'm fine with a bit of light flirting, but I'll admit if I had to sit through an entire haircut with this woman, I'd probably be like, you know what? I'm gonna go to a different chair. Woman I was engaged to was doing all the prep for the wedding. This was in her country and I didn't understand the language all that well, so I was a bit limited on how much I could help her out, other than helping to cut the invite cards out, etc. She was a very hot-tempered person as she was, but as much as I asked her what tasks I could help out with, she just refused to involve me in anything at all, and then complained that I wasn't helping enough. She argued and argued with me about how I didn't care despite my efforts to be involved in all the prep. It was all very manipulative. Eventually, she actually pulled a knife out at me. I slapped it off her wrist and she stormed off. When she left for work the next day, I packed my bags, took a taxi to the airport, and noped out of there. I'm picturing this woman coming back from work and being like, why has my fiancé left me? It couldn't possibly be because I pulled a knife on him. Wearing my sports jacket when I went to grab a fast food order. Some woman I've never seen before shouted hi and waved at me like we were best friends. Gave an awkward, confused wave back and left with my food. A couple hours later, I get a friend request on Facebook from someone I recognized as her. Best guess is she saw my jacket and stalked the sports roster to find my name and added me from that. Got blocked real quick. That or on a first date, she asked, if you were going to kill me, how would you do it? I know how I would kill you. Then proceeded to tell me her plan on how she would kill me and get away with it. I don't know, sounds kinda hot if you ask me.
Oh yeah, baby, why don't you tell me again how you're gonna murder me in my sleep and get away with it?
Asked me if I had feelings for her the day before her wedding, which I was in. Then after being married insisted that we talk, and was trying to sit on my lap at a party when we were both drunk, and I told her it could wait until the morning. She revealed in the morning that she had cut herself after I wouldn't talk with her. I told her we couldn't be friends, and she texted me every day for 6 months without me responding until I learned how to block her number. A mutual friend told me she asked for my number from him this last summer. I haven't spoken to her for 10 years, so there's that. This woman is either down bad or she wants problems all the time. Back when I was working overnights at a national pharmacy chain, there was an older lady in her 50s that would pick up prescriptions and try to hit on me a few times. The most direct and creepiest thing she said to me was, I don't know why women who go for younger men are called cougars. I like to be called a python because I like to ensnare young men. Do you like pythons? Luckily, I was saved by a customer that promptly needed something picked up, and I ignored her until she left. I don't know why this just reminded me of an interaction I had at a bar where this older woman approached me, started talking to me, went, oh, drinking on a school night, are we, young man? And I looked her dead in the eye and went, madam, I am 25 years old. I haven't been to school in like 7 years. When I was 17 eating a slice of pizza in a pizzeria in New York, I was sitting facing the glass looking out to the street. Time was around 7 p.m. It was getting dark. I'll never forget this 50-something-year-old lady was walking on the sidewalk, saw me eating, slowed down, stared straight at me with the most seductive grin and then winked. Then continued on walking. Until that point in my life, I had never felt so many emotions at once. I was turned on, weirded out, intrigued, scared. This was a day I will never forget. She had black hair and was pretty hot. This one's rather nice, no invasion of someone's personal space or anything like that, just a little smile and a wink. I had a girlfriend once that was really possessive, to the point of stalker behavior. We had been dating for maybe 3 months and she didn't have a life. She never did anything and always wanted to spend time with me, and I was a fairly busy person. It gets to the point where she doesn't believe that I could have so much going on in my life that I can't video call her for at least an hour at the start and end of every single day. If I wasn't replying to her messages within 5 minutes, she'd send about 7 more, then call me a few times. Then it got to the point that she looked at all my social profiles to see when I was last online to see whether I should have seen her texts or not. Also, within 2 weeks, she had planned our wedding and named our 4 children Max, Harrison, Lily, and Sophia. Went downtown to CVS to get my dad's medication at like 9 at night. While waiting for the cashier to come back, 2 old women in line made conversation with me. Unprompted, they started feeling on my shoulders and arms. Pulled the "I have a girlfriend" lie while trying to be nice so no trouble would happen. Inside, I was extremely creeped out. As if she had a sixth sense, the cashier reappeared out of nowhere so I could pay and leave, giving the 2 women a glare in the meantime. They gave my biceps a squeeze before leaving me alone. Felt so dirty. I took a shower after I got home. Next time I saw that cashier, I thanked her. "No problem," she said. Gave her a tip. For those asking, no, nothing progressed. The cashier had an engagement ring on her finger. Were some people hoping for a surprise love story? Maybe not the worst, but here's something. I was in a really low mental state due to some past trauma and recent health issues when we started dating, which I think was part of the appeal for her. Since looking back, the whole thing was very predatory. Iffy age gap, 24M and 32F. She started talking shared finances just a month or so into the dating. It's pretty obvious what she was about in hindsight. Anyway, she encouraged me to start keeping a journal to help with my mental recovery. What a twist. For the journal, she would ask questions and I would write answers to them, which she would read. Most of it was extremely personal. A good amount also sensitive, sexual information. I too am boggled that I went along with this. She was also doing classic abuser things, trying to cut me off from my best friends and all. Fortunately, it only took a few months for me to start seeing clearly, though I wasn't quite committed to breaking up. She must have sensed some resistance though. One day she asked for my journal, set it aside, then proceeded to start the breakup talk. I agreed that it wasn't working out for me either, and overall it was very amicable until I asked for my journal back, literally instant screaming that it belonged to her. I just stayed seated and kept repeating that she hadn't written a thing in it and I was the one who originally purchased it. She tossed it at me after a bit and I bounced out of there like a bat out of hell. She did send an apology about it over social media private messaging some years later, but it was also while letting me know that she would be attending kink meetups in my city though, so yeah, I gotta agree that entire relationship sounded sus as all get out.
Was at work late upgrading PCs to Windows 10. I'm happily married and had only recently gotten married at the time. While I was in the contact center upgrading multiple PCs, I was kind of cornered by a young woman who wound up saying, "If you ever need a release from your wife, I'm here and more than happy to, mess around or something. I think you're super attractive." And it kept going for a few minutes. I mentioned that I'm happily married with no intentions of cheating and she kind of pushed for a while longer, lingered while I kept working, and then eventually left. It was probably the most awkward 20 minutes I have ever sat through at work.
Hey, some women can't take no for an answer, and some of those women have never learned that patience is a virtue. But hey, good on you for not cheating on your wife. While I was at a rave, I had this girl walk up to me like the living dead while I was in a conversation with a bunch of people. This jaw swinger stops dead in front of me and says, "What's that?" and proceeds to grab me by the banger and beans with all the strength a turned-up 20-year-old can muster. I told her to get her frickin' hands off my junk and she scuttled away like Gollum being separated from his precious. About 10 minutes later, a friend taps me on the shoulder, points behind me, looking concerned, and tells me to look. There are 3 cops with a canine and a crying, crazy harlot claiming I tried to grape her. They were ready to frickin' destroy me without so much as a hint of proof. If I wasn't with so many people all night, most of which were young ladies there to back my story up, well, I'm pretty sure that nutbag could have ruined my life very easily. So, suddenly and inappropriately grabs a man by his banger and beans and then proceeds to accuse him of grape? What a cow. Played an MMO for a while where you could join 5 guilds. This lady was in 3 of them, was always nice but very flirty with me. Our guilds used TeamSpeak a lot and the 2 of us got to talking. Turns out though, we lived a few hundred miles and an international border away. We shared a crap ton of interests. She claimed to be in her 20s. I was over 30 at the time. We became friends, though she made it very clear to everyone that she wanted more. In fact, she referred to me as her nickname I went by in that game, and I found out that she was going to be traveling traveling to an area near me right around my birthday, so I offered to meet her in a public setting. That's when she dropped it on me. She wasn't really in her 20s, she was turning 16. Technically over the age of consent, but yeah, still a kid. Even if there weren't legal issues, I simply was not interested in dating anyone that young. I have a 5-year rule. I only date people that are within 5 years of me. So I had a long talk with her. I explained to her that I was damn near twice her age, and while her interest in me was flattering, I wasn't interested. She was devastated, crying, telling me I was making a mistake because she would be the best girlfriend/future wife possible. That age was just a number. Finally, I told her that in 2 years when she turned 18 and brought proof of that, I would consider going on a single date with her if she was really that serious, and that if all went well, I would consider making an exception to my 5-year rule. But under absolutely no circumstances would I ever date or even meet with someone that was under 18. She wasn't happy, but eventually accepted that was the best she would get, and we stayed in touch even after I left the game. Fast forward almost but not quite 2 years, she has finally found a boyfriend. She hits me up on TeamSpeak. She wants me to travel up there to meet them because in her words, she wants me to know exactly what the hell I missed out on by unfairly and unreasonably turning her down. Age is just a number and shouldn't have gotten in the way. She has since become more normal, but yeah, those 2 incidents really creeped me out. No, I have never dated her. I had dated other women I had met in games before then, never have since. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, potential neckbeard and World of Warcraft player. I don't know if you can join 5 guilds in World of Warcraft. If anyone can guess what the game he was playing was, I'd love to know. Girls, how do you know when a guy is genuinely good and not just trying to get into your pants? I used to think that I was kind of obligated to have sex with my boyfriends when they wanted it just because that was what you did in order to be a good girlfriend. A few of my exes expected sex, so I just complied, even if I wasn't feeling well or was tired or whatever. One day, I was really sick and my current boyfriend was helping me out. I told him that I felt really bad, but I just didn't think I could have sex that night. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't need to have sex with you to love you." I learned a lesson that night about what a good man is. Remember, people, you do not have a right to sex. It is simply a privilege. When he does a nice thing, then doesn't make a big deal out of it because he's doing it for the sake of being a good person rather than hoping to get something extra out of it. Like if someone gives you a lift home and doesn't mention it ever again, except to accept or reject monetary payment. Nice guys, trademark, will give a lift home and then not let you out of the frickin' car afterwards saying, "Wow, that was a really nice thing I did for you. What are you going to do for me?" I've never really liked the nice guy moniker. I know where it comes from. I get it, the whole like, "I'm such a nice guy, why does no one want to date me?" So why don't we just, scrap the nice guy moniker and call them what they really are, sexual opportunists. The night I knew I'd marry my husband was before we even started dating. I knew he'd been interested for a few months, but I wasn't available and he respected that. Never pushed boundaries I had set. One night, I was working a late shift and got ready to leave at about 10 p.m. I'd been dropped off earlier in the afternoon because my dumb butt forgot to put gas in my car, so it was sitting on the side of the freeway about half an hour drive away. I called my ride multiple times, nothing. I called my roommate, nothing. Called my friend that lived in the same town, nothing. I sent out texts, and after half an hour, no replies. I knew my coworker, now husband, lived in a town between where we worked and where I lived. I decided to call up a guy I barely knew outside of work and hope he was as kind as he seemed to be. 15 minutes later, he was picking me up. Of course, I was embarrassed and beside myself that no one had answered my calls and texts. He drove me to the nearest 24-hour store, bought a gas jug, drove to a gas station, went in to pay for the gas, came out with a cup of coffee too. It was just turning cold out. Drove me back to my car, got me squared away and followed me back to the same gas station so I could fill up in case something went wrong. Y'all, I had plenty of money, I'm just forgetful. I stated this multiple times throughout the night. He just kept saying, "You've had a long day, let me help." We get to the gas station, he fills up my tank and came back out with a pack of the brand of cigarettes I smoked at the time. Neither of us smoke anymore, but that was part of how we bonded starting out. Me, you didn't have to do that. Him, you said you were out. Me, I can buy a pack in the morning. You keep them. Him, you know I don't smoke this brand. And hands them to me. We're standing there, having a smoke, wrapping up the night, and I just start tearing up and tell him, "I'm glad you exist." That's been something we repeat to each other now and then to this day. He never brought it up after that, except years later to tell me how angry he was that no one came to get me, and to confess that no one had ever told him they were happy he existed, and that he was happy he hadn't decided to drink that night like he normally would have. I wish someone told me they were happy I existed. But seriously, that's just beautiful. Just beautiful. If he remembers little details about you, like your dog's name or your sister's job, i.e. he actually pays attention when you talk. If he remembers the answer you gave when he asked, "What's up?" by following up with, "Oh, how did insert thing you did here go?" If he makes an effort to talk to you instead of just bugging you to hang out with him. If he doesn't constantly try to steer conversations towards flirting/sexual comments. If he's perfectly fine with you not being able to hang out if stuff comes up. Those are some of the things I look for, but then again, I've been fooled before. Trust your gut too. It's unrealistic to expect a guy to remember every little thing about you, but if he recalls something small, it proves he was paying attention. There are other ways guys can show this, like by asking more specific questions and remembering general facts about your life. If a guy puts effort into knowing you, he's genuine. Yeah, that's solid advice. Or, more probably, he's trying to steal your skin so he can insert himself into your life seamlessly by knowing everything about you, and then everyone grows to love him more than you, and he's some kind of superior version of you, like that run of Spider-Man where Dr. Octopus stole Spider-Man's body and became the superior Spider-Man, and then Peter Parker eventually got his body back, but that won't happen for you! Respect your boundaries. It wasn't until my current BF that I realized my feelings of feeling weirded out by all the guys before him was justified. They always pushed when I expressed hesitation or discomfort. I told my BF I wasn't ready, and he didn't make a move again for another 2 months until I was ready and initiated myself. Well, that certainly sounds like a long time in my unga bunga boy brain. I agree that boundaries should be respected. If you think the girl's worth waiting for 2 months, and by God, you respect that 2 months and you wait. I knew my husband was a keeper. He had been my friend first, but we lost contact because he had a crazy girlfriend. When we reconnected, she was officially his ex-girlfriend, but I had an emotionally abusive fiancé. He talked me out of it. He helped me get the courage to leave, and then he waited for me to heal. I gave him no time frame. I told him that I needed to be single before I made another commitment because he deserved to have all of me and be more than a rebound. Neither of us saw other people. We talked every day. I told him he didn't have to wait, but he insisted. When we saw each other again for the first time, he was an OTR truck driver. It clicked. We were meant to be. He switched to regional driver, I went back to college, and now we're building our lives. 7 years together, 4 married. That was nice. Easy. They treat you the same when the passion starts to decline and you are no longer tearing each other's clothes off. I know that makes my relationship sound bad, but long-term relationships go through these phases. When both parties are tired, stressed, etc., if your man stands by you, then he's a keeper. Short-term, I suppose, just wait until you know them before you sleep with them. That's not something I have been good at, though. I suppose just don't get emotionally invested in something that has not been properly defined. More solid advice. I like it. I like it. When my BF and I first got together, we were still teenagers. I got really drunk at a party and my friend bailed on me. I didn't have a ride or place to sleep that night. He took me to his house, brought me glasses of water and snacks, and didn't make a move on me all night, even when I slept in his bed in my underwear. We've been together for 4 years now. That's nice, even sweet, I might say, but also a pretty low bar to hold. Nice guys are nice to you. Nice guys are nice to people they don't want to get anything out of. I also have a theory that nice guys, in the "you should have sex with me, I'm a nice guy" sense, don't realize that being nice is the bare minimum, and thus you have to bring something else to the table. Be funny, be smart, be interesting. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some appeal in aesthetic, but don't claim nice like that's an achievement. You're supposed to be nice. Bragging about it is a sign that you don't understand that, and it's a pretty good indication that it's not genuine. I'll admit, sometimes I think a lot of people just get that impression of like, oh, this is how a girl will like me by watching, like, I don't know, those really typical anime where a guy is just like, you know, the bare minimum of nice to someone or kind in some small way, and the girl's like, oh, no other guy's ever been like this before. Newsflash, boys, a majority of men in the world are not scumbags or total pieces of crap, and there is some solid competition out there. And if you want to compete, well, guess what? Self-improvement of the body and mind is necessary. You can never know, and I'm not a girl, but my significant other says that she could tell with me because I was the same around her as I was with my friends and her friends. I was respectful to her family, and I had a good career. Even then, there was skepticism at the start, but I just kept hanging out with her, and then we just had sex one day. It was a good day. Well, I guess it's not bad to get another perspective on the matter. It's really hard to initially tell. Usually I play it safe and don't really bring up anything sexual for a while. And if they're the type to really want sex and nothing else, usually they'll start making every conversation about it and almost insisting something happens soon. The ones you stick with are the ones that respect your boundaries and stay friends with you for you, not just your body. Oh, I don't know, there are some patient ones out there. But this individual is certainly not wrong. Watch his behavior. A genuinely good guy will invest his time in you, even if he's been busy. He'll reach out to see how your day was because he cares. Want to learn things about you. It won't be superficial facts. He wants to know about who you are, your hopes, family, the things most important to you. Support you. He will want to know your hopes, dreams, and ambitions. For example, you need to study and there's a party he wants you to go to with him. If you tell him your studies are more important, he won't pressure you or guilt trip you for not going. Show you off. He will want to go on dates, post pictures with you, tell his friends and family about you. He doesn't want to confine you only to his apartment or bedroom. Engages in meaningful conversation. He will try to connect on more than just a physical level. It will be intellectual and emotional. A lot can also be said from a guy's language. Listen for the way he speaks. Does he say you're beautiful or puts you down? You should do more squats. Only talk sexually about your looks. Watch his eyes. There's a difference between a loving look and a lustful look. Keep in mind that everyone has flaws and nobody is perfect. To expect anyone to complete a checklist on a daily basis is excessive. We are human. Mistakes happen. But with a genuinely good man, it won't be an everyday occurrence. He will care and always strive to improve. These are just a few differences that I've noticed about the players and the man who treats me like a princess. Hope it helps you. Best of luck. You meet your Prince Charming. Pretty much hit the nail on the head. With my current boyfriend, I knew it was when he invited me to meet his best friend. His best friend is old enough to be his dad, but they trust each other so much. They help each other with racing and are very close. Another sign is when he would tell me what people would say at work. His co-workers would joke about me or ask about me. So that meant they knew about me, and he talked about me. That's a huge sign. Yeah, I like this how I like my women. Short and sweet. That's actually an utter lie. I like tall women because I don't have to lean down to give him a kiss. You know a guy is genuinely good if he has a large anime collection that ranges from figures, manga, DVD sets, and if he has a katana, wears a dashing fedora, has a well-kept and well-moisturized neckbeard by Mountain Dew, Doritos, and Grease, weighs at least 300 pounds, lives in his mom's basement at 37. Honestly, these types of guys are so much more genuine than a typical Chad trying to get laid. Picturing the dude from YOLO, Crystal Fantasy, or I don't know, he was better in the sequel, to be honest. He was hilarious in the sequel series. Reputation. Is he known in the friend circle for being a player? Stage in life. Does he talk about settling down with someone? Does he associate that someone with you? Personality. How does he behave around his close friends? What do they talk about? Does he keep his promises? Previous relationships. Does he have a previous long-term relationship? Did he have stages of one-night stands? Cheating history. Did he ever cheat before? If you're allergic to some food, does he avoid bringing that food near you? If you are sick, is he by your side? If you want to see him more often, does he make an effort to compromise? Yeah, that's all pretty correct stuff to be looking out for if you're, gauging a man for his long-term value, I guess. It's not a bad thing to think about, ladies. It's generally easiest to tell through how they treat people differently, but seeing them learn about your relationship status is obviously a shortcut if it's available to you. It's always a bummer when you're having a great time with a group of people and a guy you are hitting it off with, you platonically in your view, learns you're in a relationship and immediately starts to ignore you. It always really makes me sad, not that it happens a ton. I'm not a smoke show or anything. It's like, oh, I guess I'm just not as funny and interesting as I thought I was. That person didn't actually enjoy our conversation. He was just working on a potential lead. It really brings you low as a woman to see that guy continue to enthusiastically socialize with other guys in attendance after he stopped talking to you upon discovering your unavailability. I acknowledge the potential downsides to being on the male side of this equation. I was aware of them already, but now I've got an inbox nice and full of the same few messages over and over about how I just need to see it from a different perspective. I'm only trying to share my own experience and my own perspective of the downsides for women. That's an aspect that I've never really thought about. Not that I've ever chosen to just blatantly ignore a woman after finding out that she's taken or anything like that. But I also naturally understand the male perspective as well. Wherein, if you're a half-decent guy, if a woman says no, not interested, or I have a boyfriend, I'm unavailable, whatever the reason is, you're just gonna move on, get on with your time, and keep on looking. And while patience may be a virtue, why get your hopes up in thinking that something could happen in the future that very well may never happen? You've already been disappointed, potentially even laid your soul bare. And some men, honestly, just don't have the stomach to look someone in the eyes that they've exposed themselves to. But again, I absolutely get where this woman is coming from. I never really thought about it like that. If he has crippling trust issues, he already doesn't expect anything from you. He doesn't expect anything from anyone. Feel like a dude wrote this. And yet, I hear that. I've found a really good checklist to be, is he trying to elicit a specific behavior or response from me? Or is he being sincere? Is he focused on how the situation affects him or how it affects me/the people around him? Example, I've had both good guys and nice guys tell me they had feelings for me. The nice guy said, "Well, I just don't understand why you won't go out with me. Like, what else could I do? You're the perfect girl for me. You don't know how hard it is to see the perfect person for you and not be able to have them." The good guy said, "Since we're friends, I think I owe it to you to be totally honest and tell you that I've started developing feelings for you. You don't have to reciprocate or anything right now. I just wanted to be upfront so things don't get weird later." Both hyperbole, I'm sure, because I don't think anyone actually speaks like that. Also, I'm seeing a lot of checklists on here. Women, can you just tell me, is that a thing you do? You just look for checklists on, how to spot the ideal man for you? I agree with the other posts, but to add something less conventional that might not apply to all guys, I find that when a guy is really, really interested, then they sometimes act nervous or hesitate a little. Makes it less likely that they're trying to get into someone's pants kind of guys and genuinely likes you and doesn't want to fudge it up. Oh, most definitely. I'll always remember the most nervous I was when I asked my girlfriend, "Do you want to play Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube?"
Guy here. Everyone is a butthole about something. Grammar Nazi. Goes on and on about the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. Obnoxious around sports. Obnoxious around politics. Snobbish about beer. Crossfitter. Gamer. Etc. Most of us learn to be civil about our buttholery, but we learn to manage it and recognize that it's kind of unacceptable. We apologize for it, but we don't hide it. If you can't find a guy's metaphorical butthole, he's definitely not a nice guy. The Duke couldn't agree more.
That's enough unnecessary editing on my part, but there was something vaguely Duke Nukem-esque about that comment for some reason. So my boyfriend and I were friends for a couple of years before we got together. I was dating another guy the entire time. I actually fell for current BF while dating the other guy. X was an abusive butthole. I didn't cheat on him, so regret nothing. He was into me and very much wanted to date me, but since I had a boyfriend, he accepted that it wasn't possible and was content to be my friend. Although I complained about the ex to him all the time, he had never once badmouthed him or disrespected our relationship. And when it got painful for him to be in love with a girl he couldn't have, he didn't take it out on me. He simply distanced himself a bit and let himself heal. He's a good man. That is pretty darn nice. I'm glad things worked out for them. I let guys know in advance that my pants are off limits. The ones who seem unfazed by this are generally better guys than the ones who pull a face and try to negotiate. Not even if the terrorists have placed a bomb in your nether regions and my penis is the only thing big or small enough to get to it and disarm it? Bruno, how would your penis even operate the complicated bomb disarming gear?
I've been training for this very specific event my entire life.
If he treats me like a normal human being and not a locked chest in a video game or a math problem. That being said, sometimes you don't know until you do it with them and they turn into complete buttholes. I had a really close friend who acted like a genuine, real friend for about a year and a half without trying to get in my pants, and then completely ghosts me once we had sex. It was really bizarre and kind of screwed up. A good tip to discern the latter. If they have a certain reputation or they treat you differently than others, it's a yellow flag and you should look a bit closer. So that's what women mean when they say they don't want to jeopardize the friendship. If his face lights up when he sees you, he respects when you say no, remembers your likes and dislikes, and he takes care of you when you're sick as a dog, even though you're contagious. You'll never find, as long as you live, someone who loves you tender like I do. When he does the right thing, even when he's conflicted at times, being aware of how his actions may make someone feel and is in tune with other people's emotions, not crossing boundaries with a lady, ever. After typing this, I feel like I'm asking for too much. Even I'm not this perfect. But no one needs to be perfect for someone to love them. Your question is vague, and if you want generic advice, just keep on scrolling through the numerous comments on what makes a good guy. A good guy is a subjective measure, so it's what works for you. That's why women struggle to leave abusive relationships, because somewhere in them, they find a good guy. Don't overanalyze this because it has to work for you. You should feel comfortable with the guy, and most importantly, you should have fun and it should be easy. If it's a struggle, then walk. What's stopping you? He hasn't gotten your pants already, so why are you worried of walking? If you're a good judge of character, you'll get more good guys than bad, but that's because you judge character better and select more compatible matches, not because there are more or less good or bad guys out there. Reality is, all guys want to get in your pants. If we didn't, then we would be gay and want to get in another dude's pants. Your actual question is, how do I keep a guy in my pants? For that, you need to ask yourself, what do I actually bring to the table? Too many girls are just pretty and nothing more. Guys get bored of them and leave them or cheat, and the answer to that is lead a fulfilling life. Have interests, be curious, confident, and genuine. If you're an interesting woman that is able to look after herself, you will be more appealing to guys, and they will want to stick around. One final thing I would say, beware of the jealous guys that would prevent you from doing this. You need a person who will support you maturing as a human being, but at the same time be comfortable telling you that he doesn't like you seeing your ex, for example. For that, you need a guy who is confident and active and fulfilled himself. I ain't gonna lie, the guy came in pretty hot, sounding snobbish and overall rather disagreeable in general, but that's some solid advice right there. Probably some of the best advice that I've seen on this thread. My husband was the first guy I ever went on a real date with. On said date, it started raining while we were taking a walk outside, and he took off his jacket just to hold it over me. Before that, I thought real dates didn't actually happen anymore. He's always been the kindest and gentlest man I've ever had in my life. Never judges me or puts me down in any way. Even when guys are trying to act like they care to get in your pants, they are terrible at it and end up saying or doing something degrading. Well, you sound quite happy with your husband, but that also sounded like a low note to end on, and I shall not allow it. My husband and I didn't kiss until we got engaged, and didn't do anything past that until we were married. It's been 11 years now, and we're still going strong. I know it's not a popular way to go about it, but it worked for us.
Oh yeah! Good old Christian boys and girls in the house!
But for real though, I have mad respect for people who can wait that long and be that dedicated to one another without, being intimate like that. I mean, I said at the very beginning, my unga bunga man brain says to me 2 months to wait that long is a pretty long time. If you gave me that as a definitive time to wait that long for intimacy, I might make myself a goddamn advent calendar for like Christmas time with the chocolates in it to, give myself something to look forward to every day.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Linked in the description below.